especially with how like coordinated these engagements have been. They're going to go for the pole play. It is sort of met with some defensive aggression from OG Seed, but on the back foot, it's whether or not with 6 going down now that Necros can find the picks in the backline. You might not even need him with just how much damage Hachiko's taking on this Doctor Strange. There's the cut through. Greedy Nils has gone down. This could be a very, very quick first point.
Necros noted up top as well. Adjudication keeps them at bay for a moment, but guess what? The Punisher unable to stand up to the Vibranium Warrior himself. T'Challa chases him down, and Schmungus, what a quick take on first. And that came down to that opening pick on 6, coming through from KG of all people with Ice Arts.
There's 6 minutes to get through this next point, which can also be incredibly snowbally if OGC are not careful with where they take these fights. And because of these like threats in the backline of Necros, and even Craggy can just certainly pick up pace and catch you if you're not paying attention. They are playing very close together, trying to deathball as much as possible. And 6 needs to be careful in the skies that he doesn't get taken out, because he's the main form of damage here.
Oh, when you're deathballing though, that's when you're in danger of the Black Panther tearing you asunder. Oh, the pack tactics are not armor when you're faced with Vibranium claws themselves, and Necros almost has another Bash Descent ready to go. This is going to be brutal on a team that's tightly stacked.
And this dive meta hasn't really gone away from stage 2 to an extent, but that's mostly because some of the characters are just not in play or not as strong. Especially not being able to get the Emma Frost. That's the main key thing for OGC that seems to be missing. Abuhu having to do quite a lot to just shield people up. They are going the Ultron now. It's a lot more healing to be able to consistently keep people up, but they're just dropping like flies. 4 clean fights, an absolute cleaner for Necros. Means that there's going to be, what, like 5-6 minutes almost on this third point.
Yeah, Lepsis Athilas was taken out from their invisible boundary as well, cancelling the ultimate and allowing the rest of the team to be in a position where they just did not have any support behind them. Craggy's also got that Reality Erasure ready to go, playing the Arcane Order team up, or as I like to call it, the Arcane Barrage. It's just so much damage onto the enemy Vanguard line. They can't stand up to that double primary fire.
So much pressure that's going on to Boga now, but it's just an Eye of Agamotto, and now he's got a bit of freedom with this Psionic Seduction. Ultimates can be used to counter.
No.
He's going to use it right in the center of them if he can find a good moment, but it might not even necessarily be needed. A couple are stunned, but Craggy's found that first elimination in this team fight, and KQ is just trying to find this space with this Kraken's Impact to try and counterattack. At least the kill feed's got a little bit more blue in it, but Schmungus have so much time on the board. It's a fine fight to lose.
Finally, knockouts found, stability gained. This is exactly what this high shielding Vanguard composition needed. A place to call their own and to be able to play from its defensive posture and really make sure that Necros' approaches could be really heavily monitored. That's why Necros now swapping over onto a Wolverine instead, where it's a little bit more in your face, ready to go, trying to grab Hachiko away, but you don't have great flight paths with your Wolverine when you're going up against this kind of like low ceiling, so you need to try and get the payload out into the open.
Yeah, you've just basically got 2 main tanks and not the off tank of what the Thing or Emma Frost have sort of fallen into. Granted, it's a little bit more of a murky role, but Necros just wanted to make things a little bit more murky. Eye of Agamotto stunning out Craggy and Wyandrew, but you just saw their HP stay pretty much at 100 the whole time. Necros finding that first main tank over on Hachiko on the Doctor Strange means that the rest of the team have to back up. Big ultimates used. Eternal Bond on the precipice of being available, but KQ's gone down just beforehand, and the last stands made sure that everybody's been cleared out just as they were about to get into safety.
Oh, Necros makes the most of that rage. Doesn't have the passive though, but Reality Erasure could be an excellent zoning ultimate to just try and keep everybody off the point. It's a desperate attempt for Captain America, but he gets speared by Wolverine. Logan says, absolutely not, Bub. You are not touching this car. And Schmungus, they barely lost 10 seconds from their overall time bank, completing one of the most defensively favored maps in the game. This symbiotic surface is an absolute slap to the map picker of OG Seed.
Yeah, this is just a complete free fall for OGC. Just the small things, right? Like missing your first ban, having a map like this that you've chosen, that you've also, I think, chosen the side as well to be able to defend first. And you get absolutely shafted in a lot of those main team fights by heroes that, quite honestly, you probably don't have that much practice against, I think, at this current point. How many times are you going to scrim up against Scarlet Witch without blacklisting that team afterwards at this level, right? Like, it's such a weird hero to deal with. It makes sense that OGC don't really have an answer.
Yeah. I mean, you might have scrimmed against a little bit of Black Panther. If you happen to be scrimming Brbr, Panda over Tanuki is a Black Panther enthusiast. And here in EMEA, we actually have a bunch of very talented Black Panther players, but often like you opt into the all reliable. You know, you go for your Punisher, you go for your Winter Soldier, your Psylocke, where if you hit your shots, you find your knockouts, and sometimes that's all the math that a professional team wants to try and get some real value out of this. The gauntlet's been thrown though. OG Seed, they could unceremoniously crash out 2-0 against our streamer team here in our first match of EMEA. Brbr going for a cheeky portal. Is anyone going to fall into this one? Would be a bit of a tilter, but it's not going to be fallen for.
I mean, you mentioned tilt. That might be another factor for OGC that they have to deal with, right? Some of these moments are going to come back to haunt them potentially. They've just started their esports careers to an extent, but they are going to go for that first point on the point even. It's a really good like CC enable for Hachiko. He's taken down very quickly. Some damage done, but this seems to just be going in the direction of Schmungus to be winning this first fight, and OGC very comfortably trying to get out of the fight is what I was gonna say, but this doesn't look comfortable at all.
I'm not sure why OG Seed committed to going through the portal for that fight after they already lost Doctor Strange. Like, they needed to go with Hachiko straight away. Hachiko kind of got dinged. They said, okay, bro, enjoy the point. We're gonna wait back here. I mean, you can heal through the portal. It is an open window, but the second why Andrew hits that grab and starts to kick Hachiko away, the rest of the team need to come through. They can't just sit there waiting for Hachiko to come back.
It was like a shepherd's crook moment, I think.
It really was.
Hachiko just being pulled away from the portal by Emma Frost. I keep wanting to say Emma Stone for some reason. I have no idea why. I don't know why that's like the neuron that's firing in my brain. But Desley just making things worse, I suppose, with this attacking side. That main tank goes down first yet again, showing that this isn't just these backline harassers doing the damage. It's just the damage from the front is just not sustainable at all for OGC.
Oh, Abu might get staggered here as well. The beams, they are a beaming. And this little dome of healing coming through from the Cloak and Dagger will sustain Magneto for a moment longer, allow him to cling to life. Schmungus is going to be forced into a disengage, but they've got plenty of resources for the next fight.
And I think it says a lot, really, that like you think back to the bands, Schmungus were really gunning for some of the strong supports, like of Luna Snow, that they have available. It's the fact that OGC just can't stay alive in some of these fights, especially under high amounts of burst. Eternal Bond is going to try and keep everybody up for this Ionic Seduction. And Boohoo finding that first pick over onto Craggy. The fate of both worlds is going to keep everybody alive for the time being, but it's a counter-attack that's coming from Boga with the Eye of Agamotto catching on to two. OGC having to use every ultimate that they had available to them. They look like they're making a point, but it's completely different to what Schmungus did. They did it in one clean take. OG Seed just getting across the board with a minute and a half to spare.
Sometimes you just need to get that point, need to get that momentum, and you'll deal with the economic consequences later. It's the buy now, pay later model of having a point, honestly. They're clannery.
Mortgage approach.
However, for the side of Schmungus, they can take an early fight here, utilize their high grounds, and really leverage the ultimate advantage they have.
Yeah, speaking of ultimates, I don't know how much we'll see from Tigers when it comes to the success there. KQ trying to find a way to just sort of be irritating, but just gets peeled for and deleted instantly. He doesn't really have the same level of like share the stage from a Luna Snow to keep him alive in the backline, so if he just takes a lot of damage, there's not going to be much help that's going to come in. Craggy's just constantly irritating. His payload's barely moved once we've got past this first stage, before OGC need to reset again.
Oh, it's not ideal. Hachiko does have a living legend at least. A little bit of additional sustain. Would not go awry, but of course sustain. Often weak against the burst damage of things like Blast Descent and indeed the Reality Erasure as well. So you better believe that Craggy's just lurking around these corners trying to make something happen. Could try and follow up for Sonic Seduction. KQ can't get out of there. A Chaos Blast is more than enough to try and get rid of a Psylocke in this case. A living legend to turn it around. Dragging everybody forward now. Sees Boga anti-healed after going through here. But the Reality Erasure is going to complicate matters. Everyone manages to get away just in time. Well shielded there by Abu. So consistent on the Magneto. And it might be the cracking impact. That's the last note in this song. Multiple players afflicted with a cutting. Curse me, they scream as they blast arm against shield. And Abu who is finally finding the final hits that were necessary. It took yet another play from the invisible boundary, but OGC, they're moving.
I mean, that's the most important thing. You've constantly got it in the back of your head, like, we're not as fast as they did it. We've still got so much time to try and hold to get there in 3.5 minutes. I don't even think it's physically possible at this rate, but just getting on the board is the important factor. You got to keep things moving. And Schungus wasting no time to try and go for the re-engage. Six has been pretty successful so far on this Bucky to find those first picks. An OG Seed at least keeping things moving, but Brbr and the rest of Schungus doing their job, just stalling things out, getting some of those ultimates out of the way before they get to this final point.
Six. Accurate with Rotter Stern, you love to see it. This is a roster with a lot of room for improvement, and of course plenty of time over the course of the Marvel Rivals Ignite season to try and make that one work. Brbr with an Eye of Agamotto in the back pocket here. You've got to be worried about that sneaky Doctor Strange. He doesn't have a portal right now, so we can't drop directly on top of you. A good pick here off the back of the Bionic Hook would be everything, but Six is unable to connect it. Necros coming in from the top now, surely with Vibranium Spear to try and mark an overextended player would be incredible. Out comes the Eye of Agamotto. It only stuns Greedy Nils, but the focus fire's not there to try and take them down thereafter. Necro was caught elsewhere, possibly bionically hooked in. Now KQ could try and find an opening when most of the resources have already been expended by Schungus. The Reality Erasure still needs to be worried about. Out comes the Eternal Bond. Plenty of territory to try and play in. Craggy to punish the dive, maybe. Sends out all the Chaos Bolts when they're most needed. The power of Chthon racks through the brains of OG Seed. In the Venn diagram is a blast of power, but shields in the way mean that OG Seed will stand tall for now, and Desley gets taken out by their counterpart. Lapis Dolas, when it's most necessary, is turning their weapons upon their counterpart. Out comes the Arcane Order. Plenty of damage. Greedy Nils has to fade away to try and deal with it. And OG Seed, they're disengaging, too worried about the forthcoming damage.
They're still just going in this fight, and the payload moving back with 15 seconds left means that this is really touch or go for Chico. They've managed to sort of pull things back, but it is going to be sort of pretty much nipping into overtime. You've got the Doctor Strange portal to get in and help for Six as well. He was hit with a stun. He's able to get on the point, but it's a weird contest now as the overtime wick is burning.
Necros coming back on the signature character. Up comes the Meteor M. Abu, who unable to find any final hits off the back of that one. Necros just dodges away into the ether. Out comes an Eye of Agamotto. Boga doesn't seem to have hit anyone right here, but Lapitolas still answers it with the invisible boundary. Sustained for days for OGC. They refuse to bend, they refuse to break, and Hachiko delivers liberty itself unto Schungus, and boy, are they feeling liberated.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a sigh of relief, I guess, but you've got 90 seconds to try and match the end of the point. And all of this past a minute is going to give Schungus a little bit of extra time if we do go for like a second round of the attacking sides. It's all of the ultimates being used as well. There's not going to be much for KQ or Boohoo to be working with. It really is a lot of pressure going in onto Greedy Nils with this Eternal Bond.
A lot of pressure, a lot of expectation. OG soaring, out comes the Eye of Agamotto. Desley gets taken down. Necros could next be the same. Still wants that passive though for the additional survivability. Manages to get a Boohoo in the midst of all of this. A trade after being stunned by the Eye of Agamotto. Not the most acceptable outcome. And now is going up against all of these players and just slicing through. 100 rage in the back pocket, pushed away. And it's to the Berserk state in the back. Extra damage reduction means there's staying power for the Wolverine himself. And a last stand too. Always feeling very, very frisky with this one. In onto the Vanguards on the back. Forces Hachiko to use the Living Legend early.
It's now just trying to retake some of this space, getting into the back line, but you're just CC'd instantly by Emma Frost. He's managing to still find the cut throughs, takes up the other tank of Boga. Now you do have to worry about this Reality Erasure. It's not found a pick up until now, but it has taken out KQ, who actually I think managed to dodge it with the Dance of the Butterflies. He appeared in the kill feed, but he's still able to keep going.
Multiple players in the Dance of the Butterflies sharing out that damage, democratizing what Psylocke was offering, and Andrew now in these broken down fights is at his strongest. Carbon crushes and spinning kicks abound. OG Seed find themselves ripped from the soil and cast into the garbage.
Yeah, one of the main top seeds taken out by a team that struggled through the first open qualifier of Schungus. They ran into Blood Kyryuda, who we're going to see a little later on in this tournament, but had a very clean way to sort of end things in that sort of final chance. And KG doing really well, I think, with sort of the support work, but I think consistently Schungus being able to get that Lunar Snow and avoid it on the side of OG Seed. They weren't able to get it with how the ban system works. means that it just really suited them with the amount of healing that they were able to put out. And just the damage was unsustainable for the likes of OG Seed, and they're just always on the back foot because of it.
Huge amounts of damage coming out of Craggy, 23k right there. But honestly, KG walking away with the MVP, very deserved. 38k on the healing category. What a strategist is. Necros coming back with the nasty cancels of the Black Panther. Bro's just holding shift at that point and wiggling the mouse as brutally as they can. And honestly, against these tight formations, it had some real value.
I mean, it goes to show that it isn't just a case of like banning the Spider-Man because he's a Spider-Man one trick. Like, he is a solid player, has previous experience playing in these hero shooters, and it was the fact that they could go for different options. Just the fact of like Scarlet Witch with the Doctor Strange team up, just almost overlooked, I suppose, with the impact and power that it has available to those characters. But the main like people that we're looking at for like the tank lineup, constantly hit by the like bans, means that Doctor Strange always needs a look in. And if you can find any team ups to make these characters powerful and you can play their counterpart, I mean, Craggy shows it's worth doing.
I mean, the Vanguards, they had their moments. I think that Abuhu definitely a bright spot on this roster, getting a lot of value out of a Magneto. And often it was a priority draft play for OGC to try and get that Magneto for Abu and take it away from Schmungus. Admittedly, I don't think they're huge Magneto merchants over on Schmungus. Like, Brbr and Andrew can both play it, but they definitely prefer to be playing something like the Doctor Strange, like the EMEA, or even the Venom itself. I think for Schmungus, though, definitely showing that they have the competitive chops needed to make it work with what some people might consider off-meta picks, even though we're seeing more Black Panther these days.
Yeah.
And you pointed out earlier that maybe OGC were a little bit flustered, just missing that first ban, and that could be incredibly telling, because there's no upside to missing your first ban unless you think that it's some kind of psyop to not show what your ban strategy is, which I think is cope.
I mean, that would be a hell of a strategy to pull out, I think. But as somebody that has like coached teams in other games that have been in this situation where we've lost to like teams of one tricks, teams of like known content creators, it's a horrible feeling because it's almost like you can see it happening as you're playing the game of like, oh my god, we're going to lose this series, it's going to be an absolute disaster. But I think the main thing at this point is that the players need to look at themselves and be like, oh wow, we didn't just burst into flames, we didn't get thrown into jail for losing this series. It's embarrassing, but we're alive, we're still here, we still get another chance. Even if it is in the elimination bracket, we still get another chance to go on further in this team. It's being able to go, okay, well that was a disaster, let's see what we can take from that and make sure that our next game is an improvement from where we were today.
Yeah, every single match, every single scrim, every single hour can be an improvement for these young players with starry-eyed dreams of popping off in Marvel Rivals Ignite. The elimination bracket does remain that second chance, that last chance saloon to try and make sure that your stage one doesn't end prematurely. Unfortunately for some teams, it will. It's got to. It's just the rules of the brackets. We can't have everyone in the playoffs. For OG Seed, it's going to be a longer road there.
Yeah, and a good start for Schmungus. We're going to be seeing who they're potentially playing up against. I think in this, like later on today, I think with this group, so not quite the next game, but we are going to see what those potential matchups could be a little bit later in the bracket, I think. But for Schmungus, I don't think they're going to care who their opponent is, frankly. They're going to give that kind of energy, and I'm sure that they're pretty elated with how that first series went, especially a clean 2-0.
Yeah, like, I'm surprised it was this clean, to be honest. Like, I thought that maybe Schmungus might at least struggle slightly on the offense of Symbiotic Surface just because it's so defensively favored, but they had all their I's dotted and their T's crossed. I have, like, a lot of faith in this roster. Like, I know the talent of the players is so high, just from personal experience. And speaking of personal experience with players, someone I've got a lot of experience with is the Bulgarian legend himself. Let's bring in Brbr for a quick interview. Hello, my Doctor Strange Messiah.
Yo, what's up? How are you guys doing? Do you have fun?
Oh, a huge amount of fun. You guys brought out all the best strats on Warrior Fools. We got to see the portal on portal action. What was the thought process when you saw that portal come and be like, my team can go without me. I think I've got this one.
Are you talking about the first map?
Yeah, when you got the 3K and the
4K,
portal full.
It's 4K.
Okay, my bad, bro. Cool.
Yeah, 4K. No, it's because people always go for the TP play and it's overtime or really close to overtime, so people panic. And I just always do this. It actually works really consistently. I just set it up beforehand, I just set it up beforehand, and when they place the TP, I see where they're TPing, and then I like do it on the opposite, because there's a second caveat, and that is you cannot see the second portal through the first portal. So if you look from their POV, they don't see the portal, so they just walk through and die.
I think you said something there of like the team panicking. The OG Seed team is like really new. I think this is the first time they've ever appeared on like a broadcast like this. Was that something that was like, did you know much about them as a team, or were you just kind of like, we're just going to go in and do our best? Because from the sounds of it, you guys aren't scrimming. Is that also like, is that a myth? Is that true? It just feels that you guys sort of almost like put the pressure onto OG Seed as a young team that they kind of crumbled under it.
I think we scrim like 2 hours a week. Thank you very much. And
they get their block. They get their block.
We get our blocks, right? And I think for a lot of players, a lot of people that compete, there's a lot of pressure on them, because that is probably their only source of income, and they want to succeed and pop off and get into a team. But for us, there isn't any like pressure. We're just playing for fun and like just doing whatever. Like you saw, we were playing PP and Scarlet and like doing strange portos and whatever else there. I think the most important part of competing is having fun and not stressing about it too much, because once you stress, you start overthinking and you just make silly mistakes that you wouldn't do otherwise. And I think maybe they were a little bit stressed because they forgot to ban as well in the second map, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more pressure on them because they're also not used to having thousands of people watching them, and they're kind of afraid of the mistakes they're going to do. But you're going to make mistakes anyways, you just need to not think about it.
What's it been like integrating Craggy into this roster? The Schmungus core has generally been fairly consistent, but you've had a couple of swap-ups here and there. Craggy and Desley are both new, I believe. I know how you found Craggy. How'd you find Desley? What's it been like getting them into the team?
Well, Desley is just a really solid support player. We've been playing with him in ranked, so we added him. Fits the vibes, right? And Craggy, I've been playing on and off with Craggy for years now. You probably know, like they.
Yeah,
I've been like making a bunch of teams with him. He's always a talent. He's definitely a very gifted player, and very, very flexible as well. Like if you tell him go learn BP, he's gonna learn it in 2 hours and lock in, right? So I think it's a great addition, right? Especially considering our other DPS player who is a Spider-Man one trick. I think having Craig on our team is very, very, very solid choice.
I think it's a good mix, and like the Scarlet Witch pickups, it's not only like today. I think you guys used it in your qualifiers as well. Obviously, like there is that new team up with Doctor Strange. Is that much of a part of it? Is it just the fact that she can just right click or left click the flyers out of the sky? Like, what's the reasoning behind it for people that aren't as clued in? Because most would say that she's just not a good pick. Why are you guys so successful with her?
Honestly, no idea. Craggy one day and during the match said, I'm gonna go Scarlet, and we didn't question it, and then we won, and we've been doing it since then. I think it's just the shock factor of playing this really bad hero, and you can still get a lot of value again against flyers. Is really good, and the team up is quite good because we have a really good Strange player, me, and we have Scarlet. And I feel like there's a lot of things that catches people off guard because people have a very rigid sense of how the game works, and they don't use every tool they have. So they just scrim the same comp over and over again. So they're not very flexible. So once you introduce this chaotic little piece that just does whatever, you just lose track and you panic, like we talked about before, right? So I feel like, especially in the qualifier match, they just couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't adapt quick enough because they haven't practiced against it. And I think it's synergized pretty well with Strange. You can either Strange ult and then Scarlet ult and just kill everybody, or Scarlet ult first if they have too many shields, and then Strange ult because they can't block it afterwards.
Yeah, it's got some good synergies. Like, you gotta trust the process. For Scarlet Witch Flashbang, it works against these regimented teams. Thank you so much for joining us, Brbr. Congratulations on another huge W. Looking forward to talking to you again in the future, bud.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Oh, Ryan, what a match. It was quite the escapade that we just witnessed here for our first game of Marvel Rivals Ignite in EMEA, but there's still 3 more to come. You can see at the bottom of your screen right now, we've got the red logos going up against each other. Rad Esports going up against Qadsiah. Qadsiah, there's a lot of hype around this team. They learn so much from scrims and they scale super well. Rad is going to be that eternal bastion of competency in EMEA. Find out exactly who is going to walk away with it after this break.
This is my unnatural selection. Extermination!
이루어지는 마법인 거야. 운명의 소리 들려 여기서 저기서 날 찾으며 달빛이 날 비춰와 시작해야 let's go. 어둡고 흘러는 우주 따뜻한 눈으로 감싸나 순간 신비롭게 녹아내릴 거야. 좀 더 기다려 I'll be there. 쓰러지지 말 끝까지 일어나야 해. 어딜 가든지 극복해. 힘은 너에게 있는 걸. 소리 높여 노래를 불러. 작은 걱정 따윈 던지고 최선을 다해 작품을 쳐봐. 어둠이 떠 날 때까지 아름다운 꿈을 밝혀봐. 우리에게 달려서 그 세계 운명. 어둠이 떠 날 때까지 세계 운명. 오랜 시간 간직해온 열망 까만 밤의 빛처럼 빛나. 네 눈앞에 바로 어떤 하나 잡을 딱 봐도 superstar. 딱 보면 모두 널 지킬 나란 걸 고집해볼수록 점점 빠져들어 카리스마 넘쳐 흘러 oh yeah. 운명의 소리 들려 여기서 저기서 날 찾으며 달빛이 날 비춰와 시작이야 let's go. 어둡고 흘러는 우주 따뜻한 눈으로 감싸나 순간 신비롭게 녹아내릴 거야. 좀 더 기다려 I'll be there. 쓰러지지 말 끝까지 일어나야 해. 어딜 가든지 극복해. 힘은 너에게 있는 걸. 소리 높여 노래를 불러. 작은 걱정 따윈 던지고 최선을 다해 작품을 쳐봐. 어둠이 떠 날 때까지 아름다운 꿈을 밝혀봐. 우리에게 달려서 그 세계 운명. 눈이 부신 모든 순간들 지켜내야 해. 내가 좋아진 운명. 꿈꿨던 너와 나 그래들의 승리와 명예. The weight of it both the world is in our hands. 작은 걱정 따윈 던지고 최선을 다해 작품을 쳐봐. 어둠이 떠 날 때까지 아름다운 꿈을 밝혀봐. 우리에게 달려서 그 세계 운명. 내가 널 지켜줄게 간절히 바라면 이루어지는 마법인 거야 운명의 소리 들려 여기서 저기서 날 찾으면 달빛이 날 비춰와 시작해야 let's go 아득도 흘러는 우주 따뜻한 눈으로 감싸는 순간 신비롭게 녹아내릴 거야 좀 더 기다려 I'll be there 쓰러지지 마 끝까지 일어나야 해 어딜 가든지 극복해 힘은 너에게 있는 걸 소리 높여 노래를 불러 작은 걱정 따윈 던지고 최선을 다해 작정을 쳐봐 어둠이 떠 날때까지 아름다운 꿈을 밝혀봐 우리에게 달려서 그 세계 오면 어둠이 떠 날때까지 세계 오면 오랜 시간 간직해온 열망 까만 밤의 빛처럼 빛나 네 눈앞에 바로 왔던 나
Rise and shine, rivals. It's match number 2 coming shortly on your screens. Rad Esports versus Qadsiah. And we expected this one to be a little bit closer, Ryan, compared to our first matchup today. Rad Esports have been a bastion of competency and consistency all the way through EMEA.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to recognize some of the teams and the players on it because of if you've been watching the Invitational or just previous championships as well, because this has been a team of Rad that have gone on to do relatively good stuff. Also, they have only recently been picked up by Rad. They previously went by Team 1 even, if you've seen them in other stuff. Qadsiah, they've sort of been playing together like a decent amount of time, sort of been able to push through, but like you're seeing, this is the first game that we're covering from Group B. The winner goes on to play Virtus Pro versus Fire Strays, who we're going to see a little bit later on. But you are sort of assuming that it is going to be Virtus Pro that would come out on top on that one, unless something ridiculous happens. But we've already seen something ridiculous happen, so, you know, it could just be a day for it.
Yeah, that's going to be our first peer into Group B as well. You saw all of the teams there in our bracket. Of course, we are in a group stage. Double Elim GSL brackets. Our top 4 are going to be heading off to our EMEA playoffs. Let's dive into our rosters here. Starting with Rad Esports, we've got plenty of names to talk about amongst these players, but for me, I'm always going to be focusing in on Naga. Huge star power for this player. Excellent on these projectile heroes.
Yeah, pretty much the team has stayed the same from when they were Luminosity Gaming and the Invitational at the very least. The one pickup that they have sort of changed up is Melio, that used to be on that Fnatic roster, that was constantly by Line Pro really shown as being like a bright prodigy player that could go on and do things. So seeing him on this team with the likes of Naga, who by the way during the Invitational was only on that team 2 weeks, so he only played Marvel Rival 2 weeks before that event. Now he's had a couple of months to get to grips with this game, so you're expecting him to be a lot more tenured to be playing on this roster.
Yeah, we're certainly expecting that. Melio as well coming in, like you said, a newer addition. I think constantly competing with Craggy to be the world's most Danish man. Danes, classically excellent hit scan DPS. They're very good at that. Qadsiah on the other side. We've got Lindstrom and Helis on this team, who are both previously substitutes for Virtus Pro. So these guys have been around the highest level of EMEA competitive for the longest time. Kaya is a big addition to this roster as well. An excellent Vanguard player. A very wide pool as well. One of a few players we've seen play Thor in high-tier competitive games. Don't know if we're going to be seeing it with the most recent changes, but this is a roster that certainly could bring out some very inventive styles. Kaya certainly known from previous games of kind of having the Schungus style, you know? Like, they have their hero they like, and they're going to play that hero.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, I think just overall it's a really flexible team with the heroes that they play, but that is because they have played as a core consistently through all of the different metas that we've seen over the past, like, couple of months, right? So Qadsiah, this is a team that we just don't know much about as like a system. We saw them playing Fight Night. It wasn't a great sort of showing leading into like the main game from EMEA. They went 0-3, and none of the games necessarily looked clean, but it was up against Brbr Patapin, to be fair, who are a very strong squad. But it seems to be a pretty young team, have a lot of people helping on the backside to be able to like improve from the scrims, and to quote, like, they're a sponge in these kind of like scrim situations because of how quickly they improve, to the point that people don't really want to scrim them for that reason. But the pick bans, both teams opting to try and not get Magneto. Out of the two between him and Emma Frost, I'd probably say Magneto is the one to gun for the most, potentially, right?
Yeah, Magneto brings a lot of very valuable utility to the field with that projected bubble, the Iron Bulwark itself. And you know what? Yeah, we have heard on Rivals and Rants and other podcasts in the Marvel Rival sphere, shout out Vodable, that our Qadsiah are a team that are scaling like crazy right now. Like every single scrim, they seem to learn so much. Going to be a low-key ban coming out the other side. Both teams want to make sure that Emma is on the docket, and it's actually a very important pick here for Rand in particular, given that our Qadsiah have a predilection towards some of these melee heroes. Healer's hovering it right now. Very good on the Wolverine, very good on the Magic, and does trend over towards those heroes sometimes, but I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing it in this particular meta. Maybe in the dive meta long past at the end of season 2, it might have been the case. Not so much at the moment.
No. You also, like, the weird thing, I suppose, in this draft so far is probably the ban to Mantis, because we've sort of said, like, when it comes to sort of that main support, she's probably at the bottom of that tier list, maybe with Jeff in some cases, but you are using it for level 1 Crook specifically. It's one of his main characters. Even, like, during the Invitational, where Mantis was nerfed heavily after Season 0, Level 1 Crook was still doing a lot of work with her, and it also shuts down the idea of using like triple support, which is also something that Luminosity Gaming were pretty well known for when it came to playing like Shin Shibuya and those game modes. They just would never go down in these fights. Their sustain was crazy, and with the protection of Loki and being able to ban it out too, means that you do have plenty of options to steal some of these ultimates. It's not looking likely that you're going to be taking the Lunar Snow one either. The Penny Park one, again, specifically, but trust me, he did pull it out a little bit in Fight Night when he played it, and with that Rocket Raccoon combo that level 1 Crook would naturally go to, it's surprisingly strong.
I mean, yeah, Penny has that new team up, gets that second spider nest, and that means that you can expand your domain as well. Once you're in the cyberweb snares, like those autonomous spider mines can kind of move interchangeably between those areas of territory and really pour into someone who steps foot in any part of the web. Krakoa is going to be where we begin our round here. Of course, Domination is always going to be our first map here at Marvel Rivals Ignite EMEA, at least in our group stage, so subject to change, of course, and then we'll be going through a rotunda of maps chosen by the loser. You can choose either Convergence or Convoy, and then you've got to choose the remaining map type for map number 3 if we get there.
Yeah, and that's the same with best of 5s when we get to them, and best of 7s and stuff too. Getting through all of the game modes before you can move back. You can't play the same map again. Like you said, Domination always the first one we go to, so it really is just a great way to warm up these teams to just take chunks out of each other. And for these two, you sort of expect Rad to be one of the teams to qualify at least top 4. Qadsiah, a dark horse to be making playoffs for sure, so this is a hell of a series to have on day 1.
Oh, Naga coming out on the Ultron. We know that he's got the aim to try and make it work. Could be, this is of course going to be very classic triple strategist. We often see Ultron play kind of a faux duelist role, as well as giving over that additional staying power to a frontliner such as Trust Me. Rajaro might be taxing the LOS a little bit more.
Guardians running from Qadsiah, triple support, being able to sort of bring back a lot of people there. The Maluki's being able to pull it out and stop level 1 Croak from being able to take this fight. So Healers, yeah, a lot of pressure to do this damage as the Star-Lord pretty much going in face first a little bit, not too much of the point to hide behind. So he's taking a good chunk of damage, but like I just mentioned, free supports, they should keep you alive, right?
Okay, that backline now under siege. Captain America moves in first, survives by the skin of their teeth. Must be getting that Ultron drone just at the end of this. Melio, dashes into a tree. Bungles for disengage, yes, but that's going to be an imperative firewall to give that additional HP to try and make this one work. Healers playing this very, reserved right now, not wanting to dive too far into Team Rad. Qadsiah just trying to fill this one out for now. Lindstrom opens up with the Eternal Bond, but already lost Maloki. Will be able to res himself thanks to the Eternal Bond given over by the Adam Warlock. And for now, Qadsiah, their Vanguard line, has managed to find purchase in the midst of all of this. Lindstrom just hangs out behind the sidelog. A little bit of a prank there, bro. Don't worry about it. And the extermination protocol coming out from Naga, unable to really find any final blows. For damage is good, yes, but the sustainability, not so much. And Healers just tracks down their prey.
And that was Team Rad starting that fight with the ultimates. I think level 1 Crook using the God of Mischief to copy. I think he copied the invisible boundary because there was a lot of them on the screen for a brief second. And it was just Qadsiah being able to sort of cut through. And the thing that even with the triple supports you have that like sustain, being able to resurrect Helis and Maluki off the rip, but also the damage that Tilt can do over on Adam Warlock can't be ignored, especially with the right click. So that burst damage, Melio has a lot of work to do. You can see him try and dive into the backlines, but really those HP bars are not diving down at all.
Okay, trust me. Leaving the Emma behind, instead moving over onto the group, allowing Rivars to pick up those duties. Kaya, he's bashing away with a Sentinel strikes. A monster in the back line. Out comes the Galactic Legend. Of course, it's had its range extended, and it forces out the regeneration domains from the Loki. Preemptive resurrections coming through from Till, brings Milk Boy back into the fight when he's needed the most. You need the bulk of this Emma Frost to try and make sure that you can hold this point at ransom. Kaya into the back, could be overwhelmed, still has their dash to try and get on out, jumps over the wall. The erection of the wooden Colossus not really having that much bearing on Captain America in this case.
It just slipped out from Trust Me, trying to just almost bait these overextensions from Qadsiah, but they're being really reserved in this approach. Even if we do see Rad taking this fight off the back of the Strangling Prison from Trust Me, they're still able to get 75% on the board. It was a really good fight. It's like Qadsiah, just the way that they're able to take these engagements and know when the battle's lost. Like, you could sort of tell from the last series to this one that these teams are very familiar with how each other play.
Yeah, Healers getting their swap in here to the Wolverine as well. When it comes to Wolverines in Europe, Team Captain and Healers are the ones that come to mind first and foremost. Of course, very good against the group, but Naga going to be able to very effectively ignore that Wolverine just by being this constant aerial threat on the Johnny Storm. The Human Torch is laying down so much damage.
Kaya's just trying to find like an opening, but there's just so many bodies, especially with these Loki clones. It's just hard to find the right kind of target. Force out some of these like bigger cooldowns, especially with a supernova available for Naga. It's just finding a position where everybody's grouped up that these fire tornadoes could do quite a lot, but there's no need to sort of push the envelope now for Rad. They have control of the point. Now that that psionic seduction's been used, some of those ultimates might start to follow suit in a second. But it is that one to begin with. Now we do see the Loki ultimate used to try to copy stuff up, more of the support ultimates to keep going. But nobody has gone down just yet from either side.
Everyone Krug in the midst of all of this. Melee around the back has the dance for butterflies ready to go. The segment isn't able to be answered. However, the pace from Trust Me. Yet another strangling prison drags in Milk Boy by themselves. They managed to pick up the frag off the back of it. Tilt caught inside the dance of the butterflies. For Soul Bond does everything that's needed. And a touch more on top of that. An attempt to dash away from a sedation just means there's a flying sleep there for Melio. And the landing's far from soft. Still finds Lindstrom in the back. An attempt at a resurrection to try and keep this one going. Tilt brings back 3 players. Healers, Lindstrom, Maluki all return to the fray, but it's still Team Rad who are in control of the point here. An early pick onto Naga would be everything.
Yeah, Rad used everything ultimate-wise. They're very close to having another God of Mischief. That's what they started the fight with. But now they're on this objective. Milkboy went down early, couldn't use the psionic seduction himself, so now he gets another chance. But just as the point is hit overtime, Naga just using these trees to try to hide, to keep things alive, maybe allow the rest of Rad, especially Rajaro finding a pick onto Helis, to find these openings.
All right, out comes the copy from level 1. Croak managing to grab the invisible boundary from their teammate in Fate, trying to chase down these strategists. Yeah, there's a wall
pulling them off the point.
Damage going. They can't touch the point. They finally get themselves back onto here. Easy headshots for the Mantis, but it's an easy failing as well in the hands of Naga, just held aloft above the barbecue by the Emma Frost. Milk Boy just managing to brawl out on the point. The Emma Frost so good when the fight started to degenerate and has that high charge. Team Raz, they've got ults to try and turn this one around though.
I mean, well played, I think, from Qadsiah. That's a hard point when it's in overtime. When you've just got the likes of a Human Torch, you can just sit on the point and just throw fireballs at you from a distance, and you're playing your only DPS is Wolverine because you've got tilt over on the Adam Warlock. Being able to teleport in is going to be a key side. And Helis can maybe just last stand to catch people as they try and jump in.
Going to be a pincer maneuver as well for Groot coming in from the other side with a strangling prism. They didn't see it coming. Tilt was caught out at the worst possible time. An invisible boundary has to try and save the Groot after being caught by the feral leap of the Wolverine. And Naga's cooking up a storm over here as well. Maluki under pressure just tries their best to fade away with the help of the cloak and dagger. A last stand, a last ditch saloon from Helis. An attempt to try and walk away with this point, but Team Rad are in control. They have the numbers, they have the territory, they have the resources, and they have the round.
Really nice back and forth there. The play, like you said, the two-pronged approach with the strangling prison was gorgeous, I think, from Rad, especially because, like, that's hard to coordinate. You saw with the point finally being taken over by Qadsiah right at the end, it was an awkward disengagement for Rad to try to survive, but I love the approach of, like, the group being like, I'm still just gonna go, like, route 1, you guys can use the portal, and so much focus naturally went on that portal play, it just allowed Trust Me to just sneak in. Qadsiah, I thought they might have a little bit of an opening here with how well I think they played the draft to get some of those key characters out, but this Rad team showing that flexibility that we were talking about in the pre-show really came to save them there and give them that first point.
Great play to bring it back. Rads, we talked about them being a bastion of consistency in EMEA. If you expect a good performance, you are always going to be delivered upon by this Rad roster. They rarely have a bum day. That much is for certain.
I think especially with teams like Brbr Parpim,
The opposite.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like their highs are higher, but their lows are lower. Rad, you sort of always know what you're getting with them, and I think that's like a pretty decent approach from like historically how this team is done too.
All right, for now, the jostling for the point. Trust Me is going to be moving up to that front line position. Already opening up, of course, with the dance of the butterflies. It's easily counted out here. Oh, even on the disengaged Melio. Oh, he's feasting no matter what happens. It feels like it's like the domino superpower, you know, lucking into a frag here and there. Great knockouts delivered.
A little bit of a falling upwards moment for Melio, but you take the eliminations that you can get at Psylocke. But I think the strength of what Rad has had going for them, especially on that first point, and it's going to be evident here as well, is just like sitting on this objective. It's going to be really hard to root them, especially with the comp that Qadsiah is going for. It's a little bit more straightforward now with a 2-2-2. You've got Tilt moving over to the Bucky instead. Just being able to catch people out, and if they can CC Melio and stop him from getting these like resets going, it's going to be the way in.
Healer's grabbed early. That's kind of Rajaro's task right now. Defend, trust me, with your life. Use that Carbon Crush to put Logan on ice whenever it's needed. Nice. Oh, the Strangling Prison constantly just put onto Maluki, onto Milk Boy by themselves. Trust me, realizing the value there and getting a single pick is more than enough. This is very aggressive here from Melio. Doesn't really have much means of disengaging from this fight. He's going to use one of their dashes here.
Oh my God.
Out comes the Regeneration Domain, Sentinel Strike. It's an absolute smorgasbord of ultimates in here. Chaos, organized, yes, but perhaps all good just for same. Lindstrom's just going to move over towards the point right now, start this backcapping. It's already contested. We're all over the shop right now on this map. I'm not sure exactly where everyone is. An attempt at a feral leap. It's going to put down a lot of damage onto that Emma Frost. Rajaro soon to fall, but Tilt's fallen elsewhere, and you know what? It's going to be a flip in favor of Qadsiah.
Yeah, forcing out some of those ults, especially the main ones, you know, Silent Seduction from Milkboy just used at the end there, Eternal Bond, really for Lindstrom to get out. The Rad losing a point on 70%, but they have 4 ultimates available and ready to go, and the first one with Rajaro, he can shut down everything that Qadsiah has available to them. But not even be needed.
Line. Unreal damage coming out from Melio. Great play coming through. Helis and Milkboy soon to join their compatriots in the spawn room. And, well, Rad are looking to be in a dominant position.
Dance of the Butterfly just doing so much. It's just the fact that he finds the elimination and then going into the old, it's this flurry, and Qadsiah, whether you dedicate to the fight, double down, whether you just try and disengage and reset for this final engagement, makes things awkward. And especially here, you're now stuck in this room for the teleport, Psionic Seduction, Muse, but Invisible Boundary, Supernova, all thrown on top of each other, columned through as the point is ticking up for Rad to be taking this first map of Krakoa. Qadsiah just trying to get something together. They're able to touch the point at the very least, but how much more are you going to be able to do with these guys just throwing everything down at you?
Naga is doing teleporter admin in the midst of all of that. Maluki might be in trouble here. Melio is going to be able to disengage away from that Carbon Crush. Not kicked into a wall, so the damage not quite delivered. Tilt, however, not so lucky. Unable to disengage after teleporting in with the pentagram of Ferala. Despite the meat of so many Vanguards, it's a well-honed steak knife that's been charged here by Team Rad, who with their consistency and skill are able to take away Krakoa.
Yeah, it looked a little bit rusty, I suppose, from Rad. It's like that first point was a lot more like contested. This one felt a little bit more to the standard that we expect from Rad. We haven't seen much of these teams play recently, especially since like the new patch has come in. So, you know, Human Torch especially was seen as like the main character from these last couple of goes. But you saw a clear example there, I think, of like where the meta is going. Like, okay, the tanks that you want to take out, like Emma Frost is still incredibly strong. All of these like specific supports that you're gunning for with like level 1 Krug taking out his Mantis, trying to go for the Guardians like triple support, trying to go for a little bit of like Ultron to begin with. It really did sort of show like where these teams are trying to lean towards. And Melio, I mean, the Psylocke worked for him a wonder, and Naga showing the Human Torch is still one of the top DPS in the game.
Yeah, even with the nerfs, far from gone, even up against the Resurrection composition. If you keep resurrecting, that just means that I keep getting the knockouts again and again. It was a spirited performance, though, from our Qadsiah. I'm excited to see where they take us to, given that they've got a couple of players on their roster who kind of have their specialist predilections when it comes to their hero plays. Maybe there's a world where you try and avoid something like Spider Islands, where the Penny is a necessary ban. I'm excited to see potentially some Penny Parker play from Team Rad. But I think that's going to be constantly accosted by our Qadsiah in our ban phase.
Yeah, and also like for this game mode, it makes sense that once you're Penny Parker, you're set up on the point, you might as well pull up a deck chair and just relax, because it's so hard for the other team to take it back. Once we get to these like payload moving maps, the Penny Parker's like stonks do go down ever so slightly. So yeah, I'm the same. Like, I'm curious of whether they would go that far to ban out, or whether they just keep gunning for like level 1 Crux picks and just be like, you can't play the fun support, you got to be stuck on like one character, which I know that they don't like. They like to be the flexible guy.
Yeah, level 1 Crook had a lot of value previously out of that Mantis. We saw the target ban. Level 1 Crook was like a Mantis enthusiast, and we saw Maluki play a little bit of it in the previous map as well, so she certainly has that in her pool. We'll have to see if there's any adaptation when it comes to our ban phase now as well, because of course you're only banning for the other team. It's not universal bans, so you can really try and craft a proper matchup where maybe you have an advantage. Some matches could be won in the draft, and we'll see if that's going to be the case for map 2 after this break. Maluki fan troop is out in force, and hoping that they'll be able to see her for a map number 3, because Rad are currently on match point in our best of 3 series here at Marvel Rivals Ignite EMEA.
Yeah, and now we get to see what Qadsiah have sort of been working on, I suppose. These two teams also coming through the first set of open qualifiers as well, means that it's kind of like a tough one outside of the teams that were invited from the championship, from the invitational. It's like whoever's left, some of the teams, you know, building new rosters or changing some of the main names. This is like a brutal game, to be honest, for both squads to be able to go on and do this kind of damage. But one's got to continue on, one's going to drop down to the elimination. Qadsiah being able to choose the next map. It can't be domination, as we've sort of highlighted. They've gone for symbiotic services convergence, which feels again like the go-to, and Magneto the go-to for the first ban for both teams.
This is going to be a must-ban Penny map as well. It's just going to be the case, unfortunately. This is one of the best areas in the game for Penny. Well, maybe, unless Qadsiah are like, maybe they're cooking like a bait on the Penny here. Maybe we've got a counter strat, but it is, it's very good against what Healers and Tilt love to run. We are, of course, going to be seeing the Protect on the Emma Frost on both sides. You can choose to ban away the Magneto, but you can't get away from the whole team up. Maybe there's a world where we see the Psylocke banned as well from Qadsiah, but it seems like they are going to be putting a lot of prevalence towards getting rid of those strategists.
Yeah, I mean, Melio Psylocke for the first point didn't seem like it was getting that much done, but I think just the way that Rad played that second objective, like by the cradle, it just sort of allowed them to keep it snowballing and keep it rolling with some of the resets. Some lucky areas for sure, but you know, Melio just found the opportunities to work with. So for now, Rad being able to work with the Loki and denying it completely from Qadsiah might put a little bit more pressure on their backline supports, especially because Luna Snow's got to be available either. Means that, again, it feels that we've got to see like Maluki and Lindstrom flexing over to some of the less than popular supports.
Oh, deliberation happening in the team. Do we ban the Penny Parker? And indeed, it is going to be the case here. Qadsiah feel the fear. However, I don't know if Team Rad are actually going to counterban it. Don't know if Qadsiah will have been scrimming that one. A Punisher Protect here, just allowing for that control of the lane with a long-range poke. Of course, he has been recently buffed as well. The mag size has been extended by 10 on the assault rifle, meaning that you really can chunk down some Vanguards on their approach.
There's the Psylocke ban as well. But like, it's not as if Melio is just like somebody that can only play within that role. Looking for like those initial lock-ins, seems that it's still going to be some things looking about the same for the most part. Melio being able to go for the Psylocke themselves and denying it means that it's going to be uncomfortable. Milk Boy actually decided to go for the Penny Parker themselves, so maybe they are well versed in how they work from like scrims and stuff, that they want to just imitate, I suppose, what Trust Me's been able to do.
I mean, Milk Boy has been a real standout player in like the second generation of Marvel Rivals esports players, I think, when it comes to really standing out as a Vanguard. I think was playing on Dusty during the Marvel Rivals Invitational was kind of the bright spot for their roster. And I believe previously was the co-Vanguard of Fincy back when they rolled on Niceland in the ancient history of MRC Season 0. Team Rad going to be defending first here. Milk Boy, I imagine, won't be using the offensive Penny. It's just giving over additional armor, because of course if you use the better spawn from the rocket beacon, it gives you 50 armor per. Maybe you could actually run it on the offense. Would be a little bit niche now if they're going to get away from it.
Or they were defending first, potentially, considering they really get to sort of choose the side as well. But I mean, the Strange Portal makes a lot of sense, placing it in the position that Rad aren't necessarily looking at, but you imagine that they're going to react accordingly. Jumping through, the CC attempted, I think, from the Emma Frost, but Milk Boy's the one that finds that first pick onto level 1 Crux of the Loki down in his first fight.
And Healers essentially going to be able to come straight on back through the portal. I imagine if the timing is solid. And however, Naga getting a little bit aggressive here, wants in onto the Punisher. Flame clusters impact onto body armor, but it's rated for in this case. Trust me, and Rajaro, they seem to have made a slightly unsupported push. The rest of Rad is just going to be forced to disengage here. Fate fades over into the night, of course, can become invisible for as long as they do want. And it is going to be Crook actually investing themselves on the point, using the regeneration domain. Healers just carves through them with the adamantium strikes. Weapon X skin as well, looking good there. Healers and Qadsiah strong on the recontest. Kaya will be able to portal.
Yeah, it really did feel that we were sort of watching Naga's POV just up in highlight, like completely uncontested, able to throw down a lot of that damage. I mean, they're still trying to hold on for time as much as possible, but it seems to be delaying the inevitable for Qadsiah to take this first point. But the sustained healing that's coming in from Qadsiah, from Lindstrom and Maluki, both of which have their ultimates, and trying to hold on to them. They feel that this first point is sort of taken, but this is a good fight back. Last stand from Helist being used to try to dissipate the point to take some of this contest, but the fight is still ongoing. Ryder doing a good job to just buy some time and force out some of these ultimates, but eventually Qadsiah get this payload moving.
Around the pillar with the adjudication. And certainly adjudicating upon Melio right now, Team Rad. They are going to have a Firestorm. The Supernova coming through from Johnny Storm, but they might need slightly more than that to try and halt this momentum.
And Melio swapped over to Punisher to see if he can sort of copy it on the other side. You don't have that team up with Rocket Raccoon anymore, so you don't really have that much pressure on you. And often it's slept on with like the small buff that he got, like you mentioned, like they. Now it's these ultimates to whether or not Qadsiah can keep things going. The Supernova is going to be used as a response. Obviously, it's going to be hard for the Psionic Seduction to be able to pull them down. Rajaro finding that first pick over onto Lindstrom, as well with the Eternal Bond in hand, means that now Team Rad are going to defensively take back this payload.
Okay, so this is big value. 2 ultimates to get a defensive position here is actually a bargain on Symbiotic Surface. You can do so much with the surrounding high grounds of the second point here when the convoy starts moving itself. However, for the side of Qadsiah, do you want to try and invest something like a portal to try and skip the dishes here? Or you can just buy all of his positioning using something like the Last Judgment.
Really, it's just the lack of damage that's done to Naga because of the focus that really comes in. Like, sure, you've got Tilt that does have that ultimate to go with. It does feel like a little bit like Qadsiah trying to consolidate their position a little bit, but just as the Judgment was used, you lose Kaya, that main tank. Rad is the one that's going to be able to clean up this fight fairly comfortably, just as Tilt had used his own ult. And Eternal Bond got used from Lindstrom.
Oh, this is a real roughie for the side of Qadsiah, losing out the Eternal Bond and the Last Judgment. Oh, it's not looking amazing here.
I think it's, like you sort of said, the position that the defensive team's being able to take. You just see these, like, spots that Naga's being able to fly behind. Hearing the portal means that they sort of flip the spawns to an extent, but Rad seemed very comfortable in being able to deal with it. Building up towards having the Supernova to work with an invisible boundary means that wherever this fight might take place, Rad are going to be somewhat comfortable.
Yeah, attempt at a teleport to turn around right here, almost full dark energy, becoming invincible in the face of CC. It's the diamond form of the Emma Frost trying to turn it around with a carbon crush. It's a big play off the back of the Eye of Agamotto. 2 players stunned, but there was already regeneration domain in play, and Kaya's been punished for such audacious maneuvers pulled off from the high ground. Maluki, she's down in the Firestorm now, and survival's not on the cards when Naga's cooking. Lindstrom's going to be the last to fall, and 2 minutes remain for Qadsiah.
This comfortable strangling prison, it's all that Rad have for the time being, but the way that level 1 Crook's been able to farm up these Loki ultimates, it's not going to be too long away before you have that to work with either. Really, it's a question of like, are Qadsiah going to change up any of like their comp really, and it's not really so far. They're trying to keep things the same, and just as things are starting to come online for this attacking side, like Milk Boy just getting a silent seduction, it's used on the other side. Rather doing a really good job of being proactive with these picks and these fights. Qadsiah almost not expecting Rad to just go in on them so hard so quickly.
Like a pack of wolves, they find a stray who was too far from the herd, knocked back by Naga and isolated by that sonic seduction. Healer's cooking right now. Once he gets full rage, you better believe that last stand's going to be coming on out. Damage reduction used, an attempt to grab. Out comes the final judgment here. And Melio's already been taken down by the damage from Maluki. She managed to get it exactly where it needed to be. And trust me, he's going to have to trust that the respawn room is awaiting. A quick carbon crush into the wall. And the level 1 Crook becomes level 0 HP.
I mean, that was really well played from Milk Boy. There was a couple of moments that Rad like almost pulled it back there. Like you saw the Psionic Seduction, but it didn't get level 1 Crook. He was able to get the copy on his Invisible Woman to put an invisible boundary down, but unfortunately a couple of people just went down too early as that was happening. Milk Boy finding the openings to work with, and now that the payload's moving again, you have some fantastic ultimates to work with. If you can find a fight just before this invisible boundary is available for Fate, you might be able to get to this third point.
Cheeky little supernova, perhaps, but you just want to try and stay away from this final judgment. The Punisher's just pushing out so much damage. Trust me, yeah, brings up the Ironwood Wall. That's going to be plenty of healing as well. It's going to be answered.
He's not going down.
Invisible boundary from both teams. Plenty of sustainability. Going inside, getting a little bit naughty with it is Naga. But when it comes to naughtiness, oh, the master of mayhem is going to be Qadsiah. Bringing out the Eye of Agamotto, stunning multiple members. And it's easy cleanup for our Qadsiah. We just have to get rid of Rivars, and this is going to be finished on 3rd point.
I am getting some deja vu watching Rad though, and some of these engagements, like it's a different team name, but it's the same LG from the Invitational, just being an absolute slog in these fights. And Qadsiah doing really well to just find the sustain to go through. You saw that like final judgment, nobody was going down. Trust me, was taking all of the damage as grew, and it wasn't quite cutting through. Things are moving at the very least. A minute to go for Qadsiah to try to get to the end of the map, but realistically it's about getting as far as you can. Certainly past this first choke where Team Rad really want this to stop.
Okay, Sonic Seduction. Is he going to grab anyone is the question. Healer's going to be the first victim. However, seems to be able to avoid most of the damage coming through from Melio. The Eternal Bond, pretty perfect here from Qadsiah. Just answering all that incoming damage. Vulnerability applied to multiple members. Seems like it's mostly going to be survivable. A final judgment was brought out too till it takes out their counterpart from Rad. But Naga's trying to turn it around in their own right. Healers has got full rage and a little bit of feral leap to work with. Berserk State onto Rajara. You can't stand up to a percentage-based damage. An X up into the air and X's Naga out of this one as the cart keeps moving.
It's not only the damage that Helis did there, you saw it from Melio's perspective. He went and looked behind him because of Helis jumping into the backline. He was just pulled away from the pack and just taken down instantly by the poke damage that's been done by Tilt. He almost has another final judgment to work with, and yet again, this attacking side having so many good ultimates to pave things forward. Naga with the supernova, Fate on the cusp of another invisible boundary yet again. It's whether this first kill goes their way or not.
Diamond form used. Tilt's going to be putting out so much damage. Naga, yes, gets mind controlled by the Sonic Seduction, but the follow-up's not going to be there. And the Supernova's putting down too much damage onto the cart right now. Tilt getting all the pocketing that's necessary. Oh, it's 5 members stunned by the Eye of Agamotto. Qadsiah opened their 3rd eye, and they saw all the possible futures. Pick the one where it's winnable, but Naga's trying to change the time stream right here and now. Looking like Doom 2099 out here as the beam is applied and the Guardian shield keeps showing safe from the air for a moment longer. For now, though, Fate overwhelmed by the damage. The sonic beams of Emma Frost are too much to stand up to for the Invisible Woman, and Naga's just forced to hide in the trees. A quick zip line away to get this one going. The Eternal Bond's got loads of sustainability for Qadsiah when they need it most. There's a final stand in the back as well. If healers can only build up the rage, it will be all that they need. I believe that Rajaro just got absolutely fragged out of their ultimate crook. Oh, trust me, he's nowhere near. And now Qadsiah find themselves a miracle push.
I mean, that was such a good Eye of Agamotto that came in just for Qadsiah to get them over the line. They had no information to work off. You've got 2 invisible boundaries on top of each other like a Venn diagram. For Qadsiah, that just has to be instinct, that has to be timing, and a little bit of luck, frankly, to put it out there to get 5 people stunned. It just takes all of the strain and sustain away from Rad, and it allows Helis and Tilt to find those picks. It was a good map pretty much for them start to finish. It was a little bit of a dip in the middle when Melio switched over to go for the Punisher himself. But I have to say, for Lindstrom there, like the healing output that he was putting out with Cloak and Dagger, I don't know how many ultimates he had in the end. It would have been like 5 or 6, I think.
I mean, it's reflected in the stats. Look at this.
33K.
33. Wowie. That's kind of wild, not going to lie. Tilt also looking good on the Punisher right now. Less raw damage than Melio, yeah. But when it comes to those final hits, sitting on 12 right now.
Yeah, I think it says a lot as well. Like, Naga, we were watching that POV a lot with Human Torch. Pretty, like, Resident Sleeper gameplay of just throwing fireballs at the floor. He's top of damage, like 20k. You're watching him, it just looks like he's just trickling damage from a distance. But over, the course of a map, it really adds up, especially if nobody's really focusing on him. So now with things flipped around, finishing the map, didn't quite do it as fast as Schungus did a little bit earlier, but finishing the map is very hard to do, especially on that final area.
Looks like Rad are not going to be opting for an initial engagement here off the back of a portal. Instead, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way and just scout out and then butt heads.
Gotta appreciate a blunt approach.
Big grab here onto the Doctor Strange could be everything. Naga trying to cook it in. Grabs
him.
exactly what they wanted. Got the extra jump pack from the Rocket Raccoon. Qadsiah too far gone, yes, but still has the Cloak of Levitation. And in the midst of all of this, while the focus was elsewhere, Trust Me falls through the cracks. It's going to be traded out now, though. Oh, it's been a passive burn, though. Naga with a little bit less survivability for forthcoming rounds.
I looked like I was maybe about to just slip out of safety there, but no, Naga wasn't letting up. His target focus is good, and you can really just see how much of a panic it is. There's the CC. There's pretty much why it's almost a first pick, a first save for Emma Frost in a lot of these engagements, to stop healers from being able to bludgeon people down. Qadsiah still holding on. Rad not making any progression on the point so far, but forcing out an invisible boundary here whilst you have people resetting is a good look, because they're going for the counter-attack.
It's going to be matched by the Eternal Bond here. That's Crooks one, copied over from Faith. There's going to have their own in response. It seems like Lindstrom wants to get stuck in here, but Maluki's already fallen down. She couldn't take the pressure. Oh, from downtown, a big final stand, but so worried about getting mind control by the Sonic Seduction, they head elsewhere. Level 1 Crook right now has quite the view from up top, and that's a massive play from the group. Multiple players going to be mind controlled by the Sonic Seduction. Milkboy used it to peel for themselves, but the overwhelming tide of players from Brad just cannot be stood up to.
Managed to sort of burn through everything. Sonic Seduction from Milkboy used at the end, but it wasn't quite enough. Trust me, not on the Penny Park as he might want to be, but he's so flexible on other stuff, and Groot here especially, up against the Wolverine, still managing to make it work. It sometimes feels that that's really no answer to it. But just the fights that they're taking, you got the final judgment to keep things going. Qadsiah need to be aware of it and look for the timings themselves. Qadsiah, it'd be nice to see another like 5-person Eye of Agamotto, but this is a really hard position to do it in.
All right, Rivars have their diamond form forced already. That's a little bit of an opening here for Qadsiah, but it's going to be closed quite quickly by the final judgment. The damage too much to try and bear. It has to be a DC. Oh, they're served up on a platter by Naga. Oh, the plate is filled, and it's absolutely clean when Melio's done chomping.
I mean, you're watching that as Qadsiah, and you're just looking how uncomfortable it is to be stuck on that corner with the final judgment just looming down on you, and then just the sideswipe from Naga to CC everybody and make it a very clean ultimate for Melio. Being able to shut the door on him as well means that this rotation has to come from a very awkward angle. You do have your own final judgment, so the high ground can be nice here, but you also need to be able to contest this point. Otherwise, it's going straight through to point 3.
A lot of resources, with the exception of Trust Me, who almost has this ready to go. Big grab onto Qadsiah. Now you're missing a huge amount of bulk. Can you even touch the point at this seam? It seems like they've managed to do it in this case. Trust Me still holding on to that strangling prism when it might be the most necessary, but it seems like with both their vanguards already down, Qadsiah are going to be lacking the bulk to try and make this one happen. Getting up close and personal, Melio with adjudication and absolute prejudice slays most of Qadsiah.
Or a dagger.
You've still got stuff to boot, right? You've still got your Eternal Bond that's about to be up for fate. Level 1 Crook having a copy means that you might see 2 of them at this rate. And Melio, I think, only reasonably using the final judgment, 60% having it this way. It feels that this is a bit more snowballing. Qadsiah need to try and control the narrative a little bit more. You have the ultimates to do so, but Qadsiah, every time he's looked to try and go for a big Eye of Agamotto, he's been CC'd out and taken apart. Same thing has happened here again. Naga's just finding these picks nicely over on the Wolverine.
Crazy grab onto Milkboy, and of course the isolation when you grab someone is so much greater with the group. You just bring up a couple walls behind them, and suddenly the enemy supports. The enemy strategists have to carve through those to even deliver a Malika. Where's the healing for Trust Me? Oh, just up too far. Rivars are just going to try and do their best to try and make this one work. Milkboy delivered onto the car to stall it for a moment longer. Not sure if Naga fully intended for that one, but the Eternal Bond has arrived just in time. Maybe try to shut down the Eternal Bond right here. A little bit of healing, a little bit of pocketing, heading over towards these Punishers, but Melio's getting closer and closer. It's another big attempt at the Eye of Agamotto, but it's not the same magic we saw before from Qadsiah. The Sorcerer Supremes ran out of juice, and Naga's looking to feast on that Capri Sun. Rolling it down now with the weapons. It seems like there's been enough sustainability here for Qadsiah to hold on for a moment longer. Attrition wins the day.
Better late than never. Qadsiah retaking control. Yeah, I do feel it was a little bit of an overextend from Trust Me. They pushed him all the way back to spawn doors. I thought he was just going to put a wall there, really just seal the door and maybe seal this map for them potentially. but there was no healing that came in. It felt that everybody was spread, whether that's healers just being in a backline pulling people apart. Qadsiah now have a lot to do. They need to not overthink these ultimates. They can't go for the big ones ever. Psionic Seduction, it's a great time to just be preemptive, to try and shut things down. But it feels that Rad are just able to dodge it, not take any casualties, and go for the counterattack.
Oh, Strangling Prison here, grabs one. That's Lindstrom who's down. Naga looking to try and make something work in the midst of all this, but inside the invisible boundary, no one can see you scream. And well, they're screaming lots when Milkboy grabs him by the throat with the Carbon Crush.
Yeah, good work. I was a little bit worried after that Psionic Seduction. Rad just seemed to just hold S back out a little bit, go for the Strangling Prison, find a pick. But the resets were good. These team fights for Qadsiah have been pretty solid for the most part, and now the Lindstrom having his 147th Eternal Bond to work with for the last 5 minutes should be enough sustain to keep things alive, and especially when you got the final judgment to try and fight things. Whether you just get caught by the Psionic Seduction, you can tell that they're backing up to try and avoid it.
Yeah, Token levy so much damage right here. Psionic Seduction to try and answer from Rivars, but guess who's CC immune? Frank in the final judgment is going to lay down a lot of damage. The shield at this point is only hypothetical from the EMEA Frost. An attempt to try and carve through this one. Tilt overwhelmed by the focus fire, and now Melio is free to feast on all that remain. It's easy clappings right now for Melio, given a little bit of airborne power, courtesy of healers. Thanks for the boosty, bud. I'll be putting that to good use.
Whether there should be enough for one final fight. Milkboy switching over to the Captain America. Even Till just leaping in just for another second. Kaya having the Eye of Agamotto just up on the low ground, really. Strangled Prison's going to pull him off of it. So realistically, it's just Milkboy's the Captain America being able to contest for the second. Eye of Agamotto's going to come through. It does get level 1 Naga, who does have that last stand. But it doesn't matter if Melio's just chirped up on the high ground. He's cutting through the sides on this map. And it's looking like it's just going to be a case of 50 seconds between the two sides. Qadsiah holding on for about 2.5, 3 minutes on that final objective, but too much damage was done early there from Rad.
Yeah, Maluki manages to earn the invisible boundary just at the end, but no one's on the mission area to really contest it. So in the end, all that healing is for naught. But Qadsiah, an impressive defense on third. They drained, I believe it was about a 4-minute time bank down to only a single minute to make this final round a lot more competitive.
Yeah. And I think to an extent for Qadsiah, you're feeling relatively comfortable still in the sense that you took the point very cleanly the first time around. You might not get that luxury here. They should be going first because they have the lower time bank, so Rad sort of are the ones to dictate where this map finishes. Sort of a brief look at the damage. Melio, like the Psylocke early on was a bit of one of the reasons why Qadsiah took the first point so quickly, but ever since he's moved over to the Punisher, it's been a very different story.
Oh, there are going to be stories aplenty coming out of this one.
60k healing, Lindstrom.
Yeah, that is wild. Melio on 24 final hits now as well. Of course, McBoy's going to be handing out these armor packs to anyone who wants them. Get some additional staying power in this first fight. Of course, Qadsiah, the main difference we've seen thus far is that they often take these teleporter engagements as opposed to LG or Rad rather, who prefer to go for the tried and true Grug approach.
We're seeing the Moon Knight, right? There's a face.
Maybe it's to go through portal and just put down a huge amount of AoE damage. Well, it seems to work out against Crook. You know, you're going up against a Loki, so why not exploit all of those doppelgangers and use them to bounce those crescent darts? Hello, Naga's cooking for a little bit. A little bonk. They bonked everyone's heads. They hit themselves. Healers stunned out of this one. This is all about Qadsiah. They've just stumbled out onto a point, and they've already got themselves a first tick here, moving in towards Kaya. You know, he's public enemy #1 for Naga. He's going to opt instead for Lindstrom on this. Is that an eternal bond already? Damn!
Yeah.
Calm down, let him breathe.
I mean, Tilt did so much damage to get the Hand of Khonshu available. Fate just healed it all up. They both had their ultimate super quick. Like, watch it back in the VOD if you get a second. Because, like, that was a really good idea, I think, from Qadsiah. Like, Tilt getting that damage in. Like, granted, Hand of Khonshu's a hard ultimate to sort of work when you get a hold of it. But it just was healed up massively by the Cloak and Dagger.
Clutch touch here coming through from Kaya, but no one else can make it in time. The Hand of Khonshu was earned, yeah, but it's not going to be seen. He's keeping the gloves on for now. His Fate, just perfect healing coming through from the Dagger utility. And just having the initial ability to control that first fight was everything. Credit to Qadsiah, though. They're walking away with almost 2 ticks here. So it's far from playing for a draw. You can still play for a win.
I mean, I'm excited to see sort of where this one goes, really. Team Rad looking to take this series 2-0 to keep moving up in Group B. Now Qadsiah sort of like proving our point of what we said in the pre-show, that this isn't a squad that, despite some of the names being relatively unknown outside of a couple of faces that you might have seen in previous championships or invitationals, but that they are like a team that is developing very quickly. Maybe not a dark horse to be contesting the top or making the mid-season finals, but at the very least making playoffs and getting a couple of upset results if teams don't respect them.
A team that demands respect, a team that's scaling over time is the word on the street. These players learn so much from their scrims that some teams are like, I don't know if I want to scrim out Qadsiah because we'll just make them stronger. You know what? We like them where they are right now. If they could not scale, that would be perfect in some teams' estimation. Seems like Qadsiah once again are going to opt for a drug approach, not looking for any portal plays. Instead, they're just going to roll up and try and grab. Oh, they are going to be going up against Kaya on the group now instead of the Doctor Strange, however, which is going to make a grab from a Wolverine all the more dangerous.
I mean, Naga's grabs were pretty dangerous in itself, so whether they have the preparation for it, you don't have a Magneto shield up. Much like support that can help you out individually if you take that much burst, you're just sort of hoping that Lindstrom has you covered with the cloak and dagger. But the angle in these fights, just trying to block off some of these players, have to be a little bit careful there. I think it was Milk Boy, but he's managed to disengage the rest of the team, all moving in flock to try and take these fights. And Melio set up on the high ground, which is a very scary, precarious thing for Qadsiah to deal with. And that's the catch. Kai's been taken out first again.
Yeah, farewell to Kaya. Qadsiah going to be down their group right now, so it's solo Vanguard. Milk Boy standing up against the world. Has good damage coming out of the beam, though. Grabs Melio. Oh, this could be disastrous, actually. A huge amount of that damage is now lost, but Milk Boy's down as well. Kaya's coming back with the portal. Naga's just slashing away with the adamantium claws. Both the Vanguards will be returning. Too sweet for the side of Qadsiah. Kaya's got themselves back on the point, but look at this. Every last moment on the point needs to be contested. They were so close to getting it done, but Rad, by the skin of their teeth, will walk away with it.
Yeah, you can't say that this wasn't a close series despite it being a 2-0. And like, yeah, fair credit to Qadsiah, not quite necessarily on the same level just yet as Rad in some of these game modes, but it's fine margins to separate them. And if this is a team that's been able to sort of take scrims, learn from them, and just very quickly improve, this failure is a data entry, and there's a lot that they can take from it. So the next time that they go up against Team Rad, they're a little bit more prepared. They got their I's dotted, T's crossed, all that jazz. It was just really, frankly, down, I think, to some of the healing output the Cloak and Dagger had, but also Melio and Naga as the DPS just finding so many picks and so many good fights.
Yeah, really combining their ultimates perfectly here. Great game planning from Rad, and that's what we've come to expect from a roster with this much tenure on it, right? Like, they're so used to playing with each other that the game plans kind of have an intrinsic understanding. I think that we saw some great standouts, though, from Qadsiah. Even though they're going to be down in the elimination bracket, this is still a very dangerous team in EMEA.
Well, very dangerous. It feels very different, I suppose. Like, for Qadsiah, I think it's just... you're going to be disappointed to an extent of like you had a really close like first point that just came down to some of the ultimates not being used, or like positions being caught out, or just a bit unlucky in places. And even here, like a really cool strategy, I think, with the Moon Knight to do that much damage with the Ankh. But just the follow-up of like, okay, we have this good start. How do we, after that first pick, move on to getting aggression on the objective?
Yeah,
really, really good series though.
Damage without final blows is it's Newton's laws, you know.
Yeah.
Equal and opposite reactions. If they didn't fall, then they've been healed, and that means that Fate's got an ultimate ready to go. And I think that Fate's early Eternal Bond really was what sealed this defense for the side of Team Rad. And, well, it looks like they're not going to be disappointing their new org anytime soon. Still the same old Rad, same old consistency, same old excellence.
Yeah, the consistency is still there. Just pushed maybe a little bit more than what they were expected, but they get it over the line regardless. And yeah, I think for like the supports is a really key thing to mention because of the way that the picks and bans went. So many supports were taken out that it makes the lives of both teams just flat out uncomfortable. No Lunar Snow, Loki intermittently, Mantis intermittently. For both sides, it really is just that backline of Fate and Level 1 Croak having a little bit more time together to sort of fill some of those gaps and just have good synergy to keep everybody topped up. That LG squad never died in the Invitational event. It's the same here with Rad.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how Rad continues to scale. They're definitely one of the teams that can really bring it to a team like Virtus Pro. In EMEA, we've got some very high-tier squads. We're all looking forward to getting some international competition. Like NA versus EU has been kind of, in every esport, one of the most important battles. Yeah, NA versus EU, like, until the end of time, we're going to try and have that battle. And I personally think that EMEA are a little bit higher right now, but I might be biased. Rad, certainly looking excellent right now. I think they could probably take it to most of the top NA teams. They might be just below Virtus Pro, but hey, as we get through our season, it can get closer and closer. And to weigh in on this, we've got ourselves a member of Rad Esports to come and have a chat to us. Hello, Naga. Thanks for joining us, bud.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're playing in the kitchen. Very spicy. Like, how do you feel about Human Torch Festival? Because we saw you picking up the Human Torch even after the nerfs. Is it just better that you get to play him now because he's not perma-banned?
Yeah, there are some scenarios where it's quite good, and when Luna and Loki is banned, you know, you often end up on Invis, so then you have the team up, and so it's a pretty solid pick. Sometimes, you know, when the hero's too broken, you never get to play it, but when it's like just the right balance, then he is actually open, you know?
I think for this this series against Qadsiah, because we've heard a lot from how solid of a team they are and how quickly they're improving. Obviously, like, remember you guys mostly from the Invitational, with Melio now as well. Like, and with the new ban system in the meta, like, who would you say on your team, you can say yourself, like, was the MVP for you guys? Because the supports took a drubbing and you were able to put out, like, so much support. You and Melio find the first kills, your tank line are trying to survive without Magneto. Like, what was the winning, like, role for you guys in this series? Because it was, like, a tough one. I think Qadsiah pushed you.
Yeah, they did push us, especially the second map. Oh, that's such a hard question. Who was the winning role? I don't know. I feel like on pretty much every role we had, you know, the advantage. But, I mean, I don't know. I would have to see that to make an actual good answer. So I would just be throwing a name, to be honest, you know. But, I mean, Raj, I would say, or maybe Crook. Fate also, you know, that's hard. That's a tough question. So maybe I can't give you an answer.
People have to keep asking that one. See if other players have a more concrete, like, yeah, I carried.
Croc's like, yeah, me. It's all me.
It's 100. Nago, at the moment, we're about to get deeper into our group stage. We're going to see all of our teams here in EMEA. How do you guys feel about your power level in EMEA at the moment? Do you think that you're, like, the strongest team? How do you feel like you're scaling as well? Are you improving over time a lot at the moment?
The power rankings change like so much from day to day. Like, you know, one day you beat a team very heavily, the next day they pulled out something that you're not prepared for and you have to find an adaptation, and maybe that doesn't happen during the block against them, right? So that's also why these like first to two is quite scary. It can really be, you really need to be there and ready to do what you have planned. We're definitely one of the best teams, even in the world, I would say, but we have things to work on for sure. There's some very good European teams, but we see ourselves wanting to be the best team in Europe and in the world, right? So it's not good when we don't convincingly beat everyone, right? So like, for example, today, the second map, not good enough.
There was definitely like a couple of curveballs, I think, from like the Moon Knight right at the end, where they sort of throw the yank down for the portal and stuff. Like, is that something, because there's so many little things like that, is that something that you've like experienced in scrims? Like, not necessarily from them, but for other teams? Like, are they the curveballs that you're talking about? Just like, okay, they just got Moon Knight ult in like 5 seconds. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, that is a curveball, exactly. Like, we haven't even experienced someone directly strange TPing on us twice on first point when we're defending it, right? It caught us off guard both times. So, you know, that, and that's like a microplay. Then there's like curveballs in terms of just playing like a different ban phase or a different composition matchup, you know? So there's so much that can be thrown at you that you have to adapt to. But yeah, that is a pretty good example, the Moon Knight.
Yeah, you guys adapted well, and I look forward to seeing Rad go even deeper into the bracket and show us all of your tricks. Thank you so much for joining us, Naga. It's been an absolute pleasure watching you play.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's have a quick review of where we're at the moment in Marvel Rivals Ignite. 2-0 to Rad over our Qadsiah thus far. Of course, our first matches are supposed to be a little bit more one-sided. Our seeds are like seed number 1 against seed number 8. And here's a quick look at how the bracket is shaping up here in Group B. VP versus Fire Strays. We'll be seeing that one later to decide who's going to be going up against Rad. Most money would be on VP, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it means that Qadsiah, I think on Sunday, would play up against like Fire Strays if things go in that like direction with your pick'ems. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting, that one. I think this was one of the like closer series that we were sort of expecting, at least in that group. I think this next series that we're going over to Group A with 0% and Brbr Pappin, we're expecting to be pretty close, or at least be like one to watch. Qadsiah just narrowly missing out, I think, in some of those instances, but you could tell that they got under Rad's skin there. I think that they were like feeling that they could have done a bit better, which Qadsiah, you could definitely take that to the bank and take it into Sunday's game.
Well, narrowly missing out maybe, but you don't have to miss out on costumes that you may have missed previously, because we're opening the vault for 616. We're going to bring back a bunch of seasonal skins from all across Marvel Rivals' run thus far, including the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda for Hawkeye and Captain America. I love the Galactic Talon skin. That one is an absolute must-buy for me. And Snow Symbiote Venom, also an incredible look. These are fan-favorite bundles, and they're back for a limited time only, so don't miss your chance to grab these on the second run, available from June 13th through to June 20th.
Yeah, it's a juxtaposition, I think, as well, of just like seeing the winter skins whilst us Brits are cooking alive like on like the first day of summer. So it makes me feel conflicting things, I suppose, but a great chance if you missed those events to get another chance at those skins.
All right, coming up next, we've got 0% versus Brbr Pappin. It's going to be bloody close, so you're not going to want to miss it. So make sure that you join us after this break.
Nowhere to hide. Woo! I never miss.
Trapping all those fighting souls, but yet across the world I see you standing in my way. And remember the time, the place we used to fight, like the sun and moon. And I wonder if ever there was a time that we were friends. The night has fallen and shadows looming, and yes, that time has come for me to seek you out. We are set now for our last reunion. Break the chains, find your way, come find me. Do you remember who you really are? Show me that you are still the only one for me. I'll be waiting for you. Playing and hoping your rise, raising up your fists and smashing through time walls before the rift splinters again. We are rebels till the end. Rise and hoping your mind, hold on to your powers. No one can stop us. We are rivals till the end of time. We will clash, no matter where. We will fight, reaching across time and space. 'Cause you are my destiny to the end. You see the dawn, the flames burning brightly, shining on those memories. And yes, across all time I see you turning the tides. back to you. And in a unleashed wake up, hoping your fries raising, resistance smashing through time walls. Before the rift splinters yet again, we are rivals to the end. And rise up, open your minds, hold on to your powers. No one can stop us. We are rivals till the end of time. 한껏 높이 날아올라 내 누워진 방바늘을 가로질러 Oh yeah, oh yeah. 필요할 때 내가 널 지켜줄게 간절히 바라면 이루어지는 마법인 거야 운명의 소리 들려 여기서 저기서 날 찾으면 달빛이 날 비춰와 시작해야 let's go 어둡고 흘러는 우주 따뜻한 눈으로 감싸는 순간 신비롭게 녹아내릴 거야 좀 더 기다려 I'll be there 쓰러지지 마 끝까지 일어나야 해 어딜 가든지 극복해 힘은 너에게 있는 걸 소리 높여 노래를 불러 작은 걱정 따윈 던지고 최선을 다해 잘 쳐봐 어둠이 떠날 때까지 아름다운 꿈을 밝혀봐 우리에게 달려서 그 세계 운명
Holy banger alert. Brbr Patterson versus 0% coming up on your screens in just a moment. These, during the Marvel Rivals Invitational, number 2, number 3 teams, basically. They've been a little bit spread thin. They've been a little bit recoalesced into new rosters, but the cores are still there. The commander himself, Line Pro, going up against Brbr Patterson, and all the skill that they have. They've essentially acquired a roster from MRC called Royal Beamers as well. This is a French and Norwegian mixed team now. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's a good mix. I think that whilst this is like the second and third team, the perception of both teams has just flipped almost drastically. Going into the Invitational, Brbr Patterson, that was then OG, was seen as like the dark horse team, whereas 0%, which was kind of like a bit of Fnatic, was seen as like contenders for VP, and it ended up sort of being the opposite. But this squad, like OG, decided to sort of opt out and pick up the OGC team as something that probably is a little bit more like easier on your wallet, I guess I'd say. Instead of picking up a top team, you want to sort of build your own with the academy. But Brbr Patterson, they've not really changed their roster since. They want to keep this core. They've changed up a couple of areas by picking up Pokey and Polly, which is a great duo name to be adding to your roster. They look just as dominant, and they are still doing damage to Virtus Pro in a lot of events too. They haven't quite beat them yet.
Yeah, going 3-2 against Virtus Pro. The closest we've ever seen them taken to a loss, but here's 0% on your screens right now. This is kind of a Line Pro regeneration of a previous 0% roster after it was scattered to the 4 wins, picking up Legacy, Isidore, Nairo, Frost Mountain, and Name. 0%, we haven't seen a huge amount of them.
No, not at all.
They managed to breeze through the qualifiers, so this is a roster we've got high hopes for, but not a huge amount of tape on.
Yeah, I think for like players to watch out for, it probably is like Isidore and Frost Mountain, especially if we do see a bit of Human Torch, because according to Minty, shout out to him, like Frost Mountain was sort of known as being the Human Torch player when Human Torch was a bit poo-poo caca, but like now he's strong, it's a little bit better. Brbr Patterson, I think you could highlight so many people. The backline of support of Alex and Ken are some of the best. Enzo has been an exceptional tank, but you're just looking at Tanuki. I think he's not only the Black Panther, but just what he's been able to do as a DPS player. I do feel that the Invitational was like him getting to grips with like, how do I perform in these top levels, and like had a couple of like flippy-floppy personal performances, but now he is Mr. Consistent, and he is like the thing that's going to set this team alight, I think.
Yeah, for me, it is the Tanuki show here for Brbr Padapim. As you said, going into that invitational kind of was a last-minute addition to the Yoinkanda roster before we got picked up by OG. It was a little bit of an addendum onto it, not quite as integrated, but now Tanuki is very much the trusted level. I'd love to see him play some Black Panther. We've got some crazy Black Panthers here in EMEA, and of course, we're going to be getting rid of the Emma Magneto front lines to begin with.
Does mean that at this rate, Brbr Padapim should be able to sort of pick up the Magneto themselves if they want, but I think one thing to say about Enzo is he's an incredibly flexible tank. He will play all sorts of stuff to be an absolute pain for 0%. A lot of pressure for Isidore, who's going to be the one deciding these sort of bans, or at least leading them. Taking out the Loki as a second pick, which has probably been the most consistent answer, is just going to be that typical old-fashioned like Emma Frost versus Magneto. You can't have both, so you have to have one or the other.
Yep, you can choose one, but you can't have both. Luna Snow on the other side, very strong at the moment, even with the Ult Generation nerf, requiring more points to use that Fate of Both Worlds. Her neutral game is even stronger, with those Ice Shards doing slightly more after the buffs. So she's consistently going to be pushed out, is the real answer, Brbr Padapim. Do they want to remove the Loki is the question. Of course, this is a one-sided ban. Ken is one of the best Lokis that we have, probably alongside, I believe, Aura Stealer. Might be the other best Loki that we have in EMEA at the moment, if we don't count, like, Saipe being an absolute magnate of whatever hero is chosen.
Is 0% looking to go a little bit more like brawly, knowing that the other team doesn't have Emma Frost. It means that Wolverine has a little bit more free reign. Beforehand, you'd see a lot of the Thing being picked up to try and deal with Wolverine, but he's just not the same character as he was a couple of months ago. So it means that Wolverine, outside of being countered by Emma Frost, pretty much has free reign. Here for supports as well, it's a good way for Brbr Padapim to get around this, because you do have the Luna Snow yourself, but you've not only banned it against your opponent, you've stopped them from getting Loki too.
Yeah, that's true. Like, surely you ban for Loki here for 0%. They do not want to go up against two Fates of Both Worlds.
They already have, so that's... It feels like you're just taking out some of the options, and Ultron is more of a question mark one. We haven't really seen him played at all so far on day one, but it means that you just take away that option to go for the sort of triple support stuff. Means that Ken and Alex, a little bit more like uncomfortable places. Sorry, actually, it would be like Line Pro and Name are the ones that are sort of on the less than optimal characters.
Well, Line Pro, I feel like Line Pro's favorite character is Invisible Woman. Just there's so much playmaking potential with the force physics, with both the pulls and the pushes in order to impact a fight and kind of create the fight caricature that you want. We're going to Krakoa again, once again, first here for our domination matchup. Brbr Padapim, though, when you walk out of a draft with Luna, I can't help but feel that you've won.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've at least got one of the strong main tanks. I think it's weird, really, because you look at, like, this change to the map draft, and initially it was just like Human Torch, banned out instantly first time. But then I guess as time went on, people realized that, like, the problem with banning out DPS is that there's so many different options for duelists. There's only so many tanks, there's only so many supports, so if you can really hammer down a role, especially when they have good Vanguard and Strategist players, you could just make their life living hell if you're not careful.
Yeah, with those limited pulls, the bans become even more impactful. Oniro going to be going up against Pokey in the Sarlacc versus Sarlacc. When it comes time to prove yourself, this is going to be quite the trial of fire. And Tanuki's going to be up in the air. No second life available from that Adam team-up, but still going to be proffering the Star-Lord and those Element Blasters.
Enzo Hulk as well. Like, you do have the Shadow Stage, it could be on you, but you're really just probably putting it on Tanuki, to be fair. He's going to be the one harassing, so Enzo has a lot of work to do to just keep himself topped up. A lot of focus is going to go on him naturally, and him and Tanuki diving in as coordinated as can be. Not getting a pick, but at least forcing out some of those bigger cooldowns and forcing 0% onto the back foot for the time being.
Enzo super low. Oh, Tanuki with a peel. Great. It's the meme in the church where there's just two people pointing guns at each other and there's a third one on the top. Tanuki now can just play the margins of this fight. Easy access to the back line. Breaks to the Guardian Shield. Line Pro coming in for a duel. But guess what? Enzo's playing around the back, and Pokey, if you forget about the Shinobi, she will just carve you asunder. Brbr Padapim explode into a first fight win.
Yeah, it worked out well. Like, Tanuki and Enzo weren't able to really do that much damage to begin with, and we saw Enzo having to sort of run away on low HP. But that's kind of his job, is to take some of that focus. I think maybe there was a bit of Oniro just rushing in to try and get the kill, trying to capitalize off of it, but it just made him a right pick for Tanuki to pick up. He switched over to the Ultron, going for the Iron Man combination, but it does require triple support, and well, he was just shot out the sky by Pokey.
They had no idea that Pokey was there. Maybe stealthing up, using that psionic stealth power. And now how do you even disengage? Oh, look at this, they're playing like shepherds at the moment, and it's forcing out an eternal bond from Name to try and make this fight work. Pokey can actually spawn camp the return of the Nairo at the moment as well. Tanuki might come and try and join the Galactic Legend around the back. Easy access to his backline, sees multiple players hit by that vulnerable cloud of the cloak and dagger, and that's the Living Legend now popped by Isidore, trying to get everyone out of this small room, turn it around. The Nairo feeling super low, gives the imperative firewall, the invincible pulse cannon. It gets nothing in this case. Frost Mountain's given up all of that ultimate charge to find nothing in the return. And now with the invisible boundary drawn on up, Tanuki does not want to drag back into this. Instead goes back into the loving arms of their strategist. And as it goes on down, this is the moment for Tanuki to strike. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and you better believe the 0% are allergic.
Oh, it was so close as well, because Tanuki, he got his ultimate so early with the Galactic Legend, and I think held on to it for so long. He didn't want to use it against the Invisible Boundary. The problem was, Invisible Boundary wasn't available yet for Lion Pro, so there was that little window, and it did feel like that opportunity for Brbr Patapim to really, like, take that fight was lost. But he was able to hold on for it so long, stay alive, get it going after the Invisible Boundary, and find those eliminations. Brbr Patapim looking to take this 100% to 0, and Isidore needs to be careful. He is leaping in, he's got his team over on the point, but it's just been split apart, and Pokey's finding the appropriate right kills at the right times.
Another day, another dive. An Nairo spotted out right now by Pokey. Maybe going to try and find some kind of clutch, but no. Enzo in the Monster Hulk form. The rage of the Gamma Monster is too much for a small shinobi to deal with. And Brbr Patapim walk away commandingly with map number 1.
Yeah, just a couple of moments there. Like, it was very dominant when it came to the point. Not once taken by 0%, but there were a couple of fights that just felt it went a little bit awry, right? Just especially like that first one, like Isidore just gets caught out trying to... Oniro, sorry, chasing out Enzo, gets picked off. Feels that every time 0% try to do stuff, you've just got those duelist players being able to find the picks of isolated targets. And it makes sense. Brbr Patapim have always been good at this game mode. It's the one that they've done the most damage to Virtus Pro on for the longest time. They're naturally going to be the favourites into this one.
Yeah, Brbr Patapim, they're kind of a team to watch right now. We were kind of expecting them to get picked up by an org heading into this for now. Still playing under Brbr Patapim, but every single match is quite the advertisement as we head over to the cradle of Cerebro. A big change over here. Lion Pro just uses the Jeff Bubbles to speed the team out and give them that advantage in early positioning.
Tanuki, these first couple of fights actually did look good for 0%. It really didn't feel like those divers could find the picks with just the amount of sustain that was coming through from the backlines. But it's as things get a little bit uncoordinated, you do have the freedom charge coming in from Isidore to sort of push the front line, but that just opens up the back, I suppose, for Pokey to find picks potentially.
Quite the force onto Alex coming through. Big vibes coming through from Isidore, but however, the Living Legend has expired. The staying power for 0% is going to be entirely dependent upon that eternal bond. Ken does their best to back away. Nice delivery of an indestructible guard from the Hulk when it's needed most. Tanuki, though, has found the backline once again, finding the moment where they're least defended. And Name's next up in their sight. The extended range on the Galactic Legend.
Wow.
Just grabs him out of the air with a Sentinel strike. And Frost Mountain invests for last stand just to put a cherry on this cupcake. Pokey's going to grab one on the way out, but should be staggered in their own right here as Legacy and Nairo combine for that frag.
A dance of the butterfly as well to just sit on a Lion Pro, not too far away from having an invisible boundary. It almost felt like a victory lap there from Tanuki. The invisible woman went down on the other side. You don't have that big ultimate. It's a big counter to yours. They pulled out the Galactic Legend and was just shut down from a shield in the sky. Isidore was the one that started off that fight as well with a freedom charge, halfway to having another ultimate to go with. And Enzo trying to find a pick and isolate people. 0% playing a lot closer together now they have the point.
Enzo used their indestructible guard right on the landing. It's good coordination here from Brbr. I believe that Name was actually exiled for a moment. Tanuki falling too low. Only catches one slash from a Dance of Butterflies. But Vasada Katana, it just carves through Celestial Flesh so easily. Poker does their best to disengage. Isidor's going to be charging in here. Has to be careful not to overextend. But manages to grab one with the Vibranium Energy Saw.
I mean, Isidor's just absolutely holding it down to see this much damage done by Captain America and just be constantly annoying that these sort of the front line of Brbr Patapim can't focus on anything else other than the main front tank that's just taking all of that attention. Another freedom charge available. It was a very far up engagement, but the teleport allows them to just get right back onto the point. Still having ultimates to work around, but not quite having an eternal bond just yet. Dance of the Butterflies on the horizon for Pokey, so people want to stay grouped up and just hold on for this as much as possible. Freedom charge is going to do well as well.
Ready to disengage, Pokey. Just making sure not to overstay their welcome here at the moment. The Living Legend is constantly pushing back these backliners. The strategist under siege. And yeah, they're going to call in the backup, but Isidore can just so easily leave after moves have been made. Tanuki now under siege once again. Sentinel Strike after Sentinel Strike into the midst of all of this. And the damage has been piled up. That's going to allow for the Galactic Legend to come out at a moment's notice. For now, just going to hide behind the Cradle of Cerebro on the point to keep this one contested. It's going to be grabbed momentarily and slammed down to the ground. Frost Mountain with the last stand. Oh, while everyone's minds were distracted by Emma, you forgot all about the Logan factor. Polly doing their best to try and make something work here with the Living Legend, and Pokey can try and turn this one around as well. It's a Dance of a Butterflies grabbing one,
Pokey,
then another, turning against their own people, yes, and turning the map in the favor of Brbr Patapim.
What a turnaround. It really did feel like once we saw an hero using their own Dance of the Butterflies, that was going to be the thing to cut it off. But Pokey, even with so many players from 0% grouped up, just able to sort of cut through everybody there. Really nicely played, though, from Frost Mountain to sort of find a pick onto Tanuki. He was about to jump up a Galactic Legend, but he was just caught out. Isidore gets that final hit. Things have a good note about them for Patapim to be able to go through, but they have to pretty much do this in one foul swoop. 0% on 99. They just need one good fight.
Just work the margins for now. Force 0% into your area of expertise. Isidore starts running upon the back line. The strategists, yeah, they're under siege. Can anything be found in terms of final hits, though? Yeah, you better believe whenever Frost gets involved, things get a little bit more explosive. Already plenty of percentage made towards getting this one to flip on over. Enzo falling low, back down into puny banner form. Certainly, Tanuki flies up ahead with the Galactic Legend. That means that there's no one down on the ground to defend Enzo, and puny banner breaks under the shielding of the Captain America. A last second recontest coming through from the Doctor Strange. A portal in space-time has been opened, but you're going to need more than manipulation of the time and space continuum to get past 0%, who bring it up 1-1.
And going over to the carousel now. Good stuff. It feels that there is just that common thing that keeps happening with these like domination game modes. Whoever takes the point first tends to be the one finishing it out, even if it does exchange hands at this rate. But Isidore, the work that he's doing on this Captain America, not only just the harassment and the flat-out damage that he's doing, competing with a Nero on his team and outdoing Polly and Enzo, but it's like so much focus goes onto Lion Pro's little mind games with Tanuki's Galactic Legend, the Invisible Boundary. But the Freedom Charge just keeping people alive when the Invisible Boundary isn't available for that ultimate. It's just the damage mitigation full stop, and the amount of damage that he's doing means that he's getting that ultimate frequently enough that it is an absolute pain for Brbr Patapim to deal with.
Yeah, our generation is off the charts right now. Giving over those additional armor packs here is Isidore. Making sure there's that additional survivability in this first fight, and it can be so necessary. I don't think there are any major changes right now, apart from Enzo going a lot more reserved. Magneto on the field now instead of the Hulk.
And Tanuki, Human Torch, trying to change it up to something that doesn't feel like it can just do consistent damage. It isn't looking for these like burst phases to get on through. Frost Mountain just trying to pick his fights. He does have that last stand and catching on to Enzo right up into the sky from the top ropes, pulling him into the backline. There's very little that can be done about it. Polly trying to mirror some of the success that the Captain America is having on their side, still feels that Brbr Patapim are not going to be able to take up the point first.
Oh, Frost Mountain gets one with the last stand. Plenty of healing now off the board. Everyone's kind of running on fumes at the moment. Damage could be permanent, and damage certainly going to be delivered here by the Dancer of Butterflies. Pokey gets Legacy, and just about escaping with their life here is Frost Mountain. Polly ready to charge down Isidore in their counterpart. This is going to be first cap for Brbr.
Going to be any changes to 0%. Things moving over. Ultimates building. Fate of Both Worlds sat pretty. It's whether Legacy can get that ultimate to just silence things as they go through. Psionic Seduction, good to go. Eternal Bond as well. Feels it's going to be tough for Frost Mountain and Isidore to find that same success because Tanuki is just chipping away damage from the heights that it's very hard to deal with him.
Oh, Sonic Seduction already out, but Line Pro's nowhere to be seen when it comes to help. Those winged shurikens carve through the Invisible Woman, and there's so much staying power available here for Brbr Patapim while the Fate of Both Worlds is playing. The dance floor is full. They're playing my favorite song, and Polly is just going to be bringing their own notes to this symphony, rolling through with the living legend. Plenty of additional health for everyone. Even the burst can't break you through the healing that has been levied. Name under pressure. Polly chases them down, and Brbr Patapim, they're in full control of this fight.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like a good fight for 0% at all. They dedicate a lot of ultimates, and they still haven't made the progression on the board, so it's got past 50%, and they've used the likes of Freedom Charge, Eternal Bond. That fight was just continued after they lost Line Pro so early in it that it really just ended up leaning towards Patapim. They're going to be feeling really good about this fight. They have some good ultimates to boot and to work with, and 0% need to find it in.
Isidore's going to be looking to generate one of those. Playing the off angle with the Captain America. That constant threat that requires attention. You better believe that Tanuki is going to pay that attention. Actually, spots out Pokey. That could allow for an arrow to get an early grab. And Frost Mountain manages to get their friend so low as well. Legacy's already fallen down. You can't be losing your Emma Frost this early. The Eternal Bond added to the mix by Ken is plenty of additional damage. Realizing this is going to be final fight of the map. Potentially Tanuki pops out for Supernova. And the damage is going to be too much for Line Pro to take, chased down by Polly. 0% are running out of gas, running out of friends, running out of HP, and running out of time. And they're all out of chances too. This one's going to tick down in the overtime, and Brbr Patapim will take map 1.
I mean, it's hard work. You're playing up against one of the best domination teams in EMEA, but I think 0% are going to look back at that and think, like, we could have been more disciplined with... You go into some fights and then you sort of realize that the fight's not good, and you might have an opportunity to just try and disengage, cut your losses. But so many teams naturally go like, no, like we're over-dedicated to a losing fight, and it just buys so much time for Brbr Patapim to just sort of take the point quite cleanly that they only end up having 3 fights in order to get it. But still, there's promise for the 0% team. Like, it's the first time that we've probably had a look at like Isidore and likes of Frost Mountain and Nero, and you could sort of see why Line Pro wanted to play with this squad. There's so much like promise there. It's just a little bit rough around the edges compared to the second best team in the region.
Well, Isidore's kind of putting up numbers on the Captain America. 15k? Ooh.
Yeah.
A little bit spicy.
I mean, we were watching his POV, right? It was just like... one of those
Bro was wailing on him. Bro was wailing on him. So we look at our highlights here. Tanuki popping off, of course, on the Star-Lord. How's fallen out of vogue a little bit compared to a couple of months previous, where it seems like Winter Soldier and Star-Lord have consistently been these superstar duelists who often dictate the flow of matches. We've seen more of a move towards Psylocke-based compositions, and Wolverine's also been having a little bit of a resurgence as well, despite the prevalence of Emma, who's a pretty effective Wolverine counter with that Carbon Crush.
Yeah, I think that, like, you could say like the balance changes and stuff, but also just like the pick ban phase change in the way that it has means that there is a lot more like freedom in those places. Sometimes it can be a bit confusing to sort of keep in mind and sort of track in places, but now the teams have got used to it, you could sort of start to see the ideas around what they want to try and aim for, what they want to keep on the board, what they definitely want to get off the board for their opponents here.
Yeah, you got to try and control the options for your opponent, but trying to control it from a duelist-centric POV is often incredibly difficult just because there's so much variety in that role. Your duelists, if you ban one out, like you're going up against Tanuki. Bro's got such a wide pool. And happy to match on the Wolverine as well. Always willing to come out on the Winter Soldier. The Star-Lord's always in the back pocket. And you better believe it, that Black Panther. Like, the second that it's available, Tanuki is going to like, trust me, boys, one life on the Black Panther. Just one life on the Black Panther, bro.
He just wants a good go of it. I do, like, also admire, like, Brbr Patapim's, like, the hero changes they made for that third point. It felt like, okay, we're struggling with this. Like, we've changed up 4 different characters and really it looked like 0% was still trying to adjust to be like, okay, how do we deal with this? Like, Brbr Patapim, when they felt behind, when they felt a little bit countered with like the heroes that were on the board, made a very clean sweep to change up some of the stuff for that third point, and from there it was very, very clean on that final objective.
Yeah, cerebral gameplay coming through to make sure that you could always account for what was it like. They saw that Legacy was getting a lot of pressure onto Enzo on these deep dives from the Hulk. So instead they go, okay, we're going to play a little bit more conservatively. We're going to play the Magneto close to the team, and well, it made sure that there were far fewer of those openings for Isidore and Legacy to really capitalize on. We'll see if there's much adaptation coming through from our teams right after this break for map number 2.
Today, the age of Ultron begins. Termination. Challenge me, you animals. Emperor's protection. You would have failed without me. The virus takes hold. Extermination! All targets eliminated.
It's the marquee matchup of the day, gamers, and well, Brbr Patapim are already bringing the spice. 0% are on the back foot and being forced to adapt to a team that in this domination map managed to change their entire style to try and deal with a good backline response from 0% hunting down their Hulk player of Enzo.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where this goes from here. We've seen a decent amount of Brbr Patapim in like third-party tournaments like Fight Night for 0%. We haven't seen them all that much, most certainly since the Ultron patch and all of these changes have come in. they've sort of kept their cards close to their chest, and probably ever since they've known the matchups of who's in their groups, might have been trying to avoid some of these opponents that they're playing up against. But Midtown, the convoy map, first convoy map of the day that we've actually seen, means that there's maybe some movement, I suppose, of the likes of like Storm and Human Torch with how high some of these like map pieces are to play around.
For those of you who haven't seen it yet, this is our advanced tournament ban system. In this ban system, unlike in your comp games, the bans you pick are only for the enemy team, so you can try and take away the strengths of the enemy and build yourself. Maybe you get to play Magneto and the other team doesn't. You can see on our red side there for Brbr Patapim, they banned away the Magneto from 0% and they saved it for themselves, so that they are going to be able to play Magneto, and 0% are not. On the other side, 0% they've banned away the Emma Frost, but they've protected it for themselves. So Brbr Patapim is not going to be able to match Emma Frost in the midst of all of this. Ordering can be super important, and also you don't want to give away your strategy too early. But in the current meta, both teams are going to be opting in generally, no matter what matchup we go for, to get rid of either Magneto or Emma, to make sure that that Vanguard line cannot exist at the same time.
Yeah, like if you have Emma and Magneto and the other team don't, it feels so oppressive. So now you're just sort of looking for those instances of, like, for example, 0% being able to ban out Wolverine and pick it themselves mean that there's a certain angle that they want to go for. And Brbr Patapim banning out the Captain America because they see there was such a pain on it in that last game, it would make sense to.
Yeah, a little bit of a target there. Just make sure that Isidore cannot continue marauding in the backline. It's going to be once again a Lunar Snow gap as well here. I'm surprised that Aluna Snow was allowed to get through as easily as she was. Once again, 0% are going to have to play without that. To be fair, it's not a massive nerf to 0%, considering that Line Pro does prefer to play the Invisible Woman in most circumstances, but you can't deny the raw power that Lunar Snow brings to the table and the unfathomable value of her ultimate.
Oh, for sure. That's why Loki's so commonly banned out for both teams about being able to really pick him. But I'm looking at, like, the saves here, right? Like Magneto and Luna versus Emma Frost and Wolverine. Naturally, I'm leaning towards, like, the first option that I was going to say OG, but Brbr Patapim were able to pick up here. So this is also the map choice of 0%. After they lost, they also got to choose the side as well. So this is, like, where they're going to try to set up as best that they can. It's not the most common map. I think Spider Islands is probably the more go-to option, I think, for Convoy, but it's one that can often get overlooked, and it was very prevalent in the Invitational when we did see a lot of Storm being played, because the high ground is just very easy to sort of play around, like the buildings, and just be irritating, hard to take down.
Oh, early hold here coming through as well. That's a legitimate Penny Parker from Isidore. Just trying to spawn camp here and burn down the time bank as quickly as possible. I imagine Isidore will be swapping away from a Penny Parker after his first hold comes on through. But the thing is, you can contest the mission area from the doorway here. You don't have to give up too much, and you can use it for cover for players who are trying to escape the spawn as well. That's why you see Pokey moving through on the Moon Knight here, so that those who are in cover, just freely healing onto these Vanguards as they come on through, are still subject to the bounces of those Crescent darts. But Isidore goes out a touch too far, gets resurrected.
It means that everybody's still down. You just look at the chunks of damage that Frost Mountain and Legacy have been taking. It's a very early, like, amplify that's coming for Line Pro, but it really does highlight just the amount of healing that's required. Pokey bringing out the Moon Knight, showing that it's not just a one-off that we saw in the last series. Just that concentrated damage in a small space is very good at clearing out these kind of strategies that 0% have tried to employ.
Okay, this kind of a Team Peps-esque strategy for those of you who are EMEA heads, just instantly recontesting with a strange portal here, keeping up the pressure, keeping up the pace all the time, continuously just taxing this time bank that Brbr Patapim have. Tanuki, though, none of this nonsense is to be given over. Name taken out midway through their ultimate. The Eternal Bond unable to sustain them. Brutal play from Tanuki.
And he just goes back and switches.
I'm done.
Goes in, gets a 4K, leaves. No more changes. You've also got Ken that's also playing up on the Squirrel Girl, has the ultimate, is 10 and 0. Your support player is just demolishing the strategy that 0% we're working with, to a point that it's just all of the weird picks from Brbr Patapim coming out at the perfect time. 0% need to move to plan B.
An unbeatable Squirrel Tsunami. It's a rarity in pro play, but it's going to be deployed nonetheless, and maybe it hasn't been adapted for very quickly here from 0%. I think it's been taken down, but while you look towards the squirrels, you don't look towards the miniguns, and you better believe that Frank is packing quite the weapon collection. And now it's going to be a swap over onto what you'd consider more of a regular comp after using their ult bank.
Yeah, a bit of a weird moment. He's sort of blacked out and you're looking at Enzo playing a Punisher and then the Squirrel Girl, but after that first point, all of those little areas to play around, things should sort of settle down to something a little bit more common. Magneto versus Hulk is just really strong for the fact that you could just come in and jump in and have those shields to keep you alive and be out again. Line Pro moving over to Invisible Woman. Has an invisible boundary very early on. Gonna use it as the Dance of the Butterfly comes through, but with everybody grouped up, it barely does the damage, and the counter ultimate is going to be used on top.
Yeah, on the other side, not being inside the invisible boundary, the sharing out of damage simply means that both of the strategists will fall. And 0% finally have themselves a little bit of stability to work with here. Both teams running the Hulk, but of course only 0% have the team ups. They banned out the Wolverine from the opposing side, which means Frost Mountain essentially gets an extra Berserk stage per fight when they get thrown at the enemy.
Now trying to jump in, he finds the perfect character to be able to dive on, but there's so much heal there that there's not able to get an elimination off the back of it. Does have the last stand, trying to find a good fight to go with, whilst the Worldbreaker Hulk is trying to dive in onto the back line to get some picks onto Brbr Pavin.
Tanuki, given that metallic bulwark, an attempt at a mid-air grab right there. And while there is an exile, it's not going to last for long. And it seems that Isidore is going to be reduced into a puny banner form. And now the Eternal Bond. Still 0% belief that this one's winnable. Name thinks they can at least survive longer than they did last time against the Tanuki Storm. Out comes the final stand. It drags multiple players out of the LOS of Alex. And while you may be dancing around happily, the rest of your team are not dancing to a happy tune.
Yeah, it was a good call from Name to pull out the ultimate there. It's something that we were worried about in that first map of just the over-fighting in areas that it's lost. Now they're just trying to buy a bit more time, force Alex out of the engagement for the time being. It feels like bullying, because it is bullying. But have been forced to wait 10 more seconds before they can go for another re-engage. And Line Pro has another ultimate to work with on the Invisible Woman.
Yeah, also that constant use of the Guardian Shield there as well to just continuously slow Alex. Polly already grabbed, is going to be pulled off of the target. Frost Mountain held at bay for but a moment. Deep into the backline goes Enzo. It's a good distraction, but I don't think the Exile manages to impact. Oniro manages to force out at least the invisible boundary, and Poki's fallen elsewhere while attention was diverted into the backline by the Psylocke. Isidore free to brawl out here. You need to try and take out the Invisible Woman utilizing this Meteor M, but you can't find the target. You just throw out a speculative Meteor M into the midst of nowhere. Line Pro's going to have to fall alone, just trying to trade their life for seconds on the cart. And the same will have to be said of Isidore, as Oniro has no chance of escape.
Enzo clearing up people, trying to get a little bit more. It was a good fight for 0%. Bought a lot of time considering how badly that first area of the map went. So now just short of 90 seconds left on the clock. A very uncomfortable place to fight, but Brbr have been doing the right thing of just trying to take a little bit more space past the choke. Frost Mountain, wait to see an overextension to see if he can pull somebody away.
Does Tanuki save the Horn of Proteus until the Fate of Both Worlds is available is the question. With that damage boost, it can be absolutely brutal, including onto a player who's inside of a Strategist Ultimate for that additional healing. Alex waiting to make the call. For now, just allowing things to go as they may. Look out for that purple aura coming through from the Fate of Both Worlds. Damage boost onto the back. Name never stood a chance. Oneiro's going to have to stand alone, but Poki will not let them sit in peace. Isidore instantly executed the moment they return to the puny banner form, and Brbr Palapim, despite their time back taking a bit of a hit, are going to complete second.
It's another case of Brbr Palapim being sort of stuck on a point, changing up their comp ever so slightly, like this name, or finding enough damage to sort of get on through. But Enzo has been really good at sort of getting past these backlines of 0% and catching people out. And even if you've got these like big combinations of ultimates, they're not the ones necessarily getting the elimination. You've got the Wolverine diving in to try and catch somebody. Can't quite get it for Frost Mountain.
Well, missing both of those Berserk states is going to be a little bit of an opening here where 0% don't have the Vanguard pressure that they'd otherwise like. And without that there, Poki knows that it's time to try and make an insertion into the backline. Tanuki notes Oniro over on the other side. These squids are just such a complicating factor in the midst of all this, and you better believe that Onira gets caught out by the Cephalopod Menace on the tail end of that.
Yeah, just a little bit extra CC makes it more difficult, I think, for Frost Mountain. Again, those instances, a couple of players go down, and that's when Legacy pulls out the Psionic Seduction, and it's just those big ultimates used in losing fights. Can't quite get it going, so Brbr Patapim moving things along. Isidro trying to just jump in over on the Hulk to dive in, and the Dance of the Butterfly is not really finding the picks. It's Line Pro that's going down first in a lot of these engagements, and then Enzo's there to clean up house.
Polly grabbed though. Tanuki does get exiled, but the follow-up's not going to be there. Couldn't quite find the lead. Pokey once again, whenever it's necessary, Pokey always delivers a double. What a pickup for Brbr Patapim that Pokey and Polly were as a duo. The Royal Beamer's acquisition really served them well. Up the invisible boundary goes, and that means that Frost Mountain's got the staying power to sit on cart for now. He's going to start rolling on backwards, but Brbr Patapim can recontest with 3 ultimates.
They're just holding on, just getting across the point. Might be enough. Dance the Butterflies, trying to isolate somebody to just do a little bit more damage to them, but it's jumped onto the Hunk that had the Hulk that's had that sustain to go through. I mean, it's a really nice skin, to be fair. But now for Tanuki, he's trying to sort of clean up to find these final eliminations, get anybody off the point and contesting into overtime. Honestly, for 0%, it's a good showing, even if it does sort of hit the end of this map, to just bring it all the way down to 0 on the clock. And they're still going for these fights. There's only 3 alive. Nami with the Eternal Bond is trying to get past all 6 people being alive for Brbr Patapim. It's just out the front door for this team that are spawning out of the Avengers Tower. It's going to be hard for Brbr Patapim to put this one to bed now.
Oh, maybe there's an opening though. Enzo goes a little bit deep here. Could be punished out, but no, Name's been found. Line Pros for next. Under siege over into a World Breaker Hulk, and you better believe the world of New York is quivering under the power he delivers. That's our controller goat right there, Enzo flicking the sticks.
I mean, just really well played from him from Hulk. I keep hearing like murmurings of like Hulk being used a lot more consistently by teams, but seen as a little bit of a misnomer that it's just some teams are doing it, but not everybody. We're seeing glimpses of those that really enjoy playing Hulk that were, you know, a part of Season 0 where it was very prevalent beforehand. You can sort of see that Enzo wants to be on these dive tanks. He played a lot of Venom at the Invitational, but now back to his roots, I think, with Hulk. And on a map like this, and you've got the harassment from Tanuki and Pokey coming through, it just makes his life so much easier.
Bro just wants to zoom, you know? And I feel like the Hulk brings so much to the table in the form of the Gamma Squid for the Namor, because you're going up against a Wolverine and you're going up against another Hulk, and neither of those players really has a great way of dealing with the expanded HP pool of the Gamma Squid, nor can they really reach it in most cases. So that means that there's just even more essentially business admin that Oniro has to do before they can actually make their dive work.
I remember talking to Line Pro preparing for the Invitational and me being like, what's the matter? And he's like, I hate Namor and Luna Snow's like team up, like the slowing squids. And I almost forgot about it for a bit because it's been a while since we've like properly seen it used. But here it's, again, Line Pro's probably seething at the fact that he has to deal with this again.
Yeah, the Gamma Squids are nasty. We thought the Plague had left us when they turned the Fetchel and Charisma team up. No. The Plague simply mutated.
Yeah, it's shuffled across slightly.
Tanuki under a lot of pressure here. Hold up. Oniro down to 5 HP, forced out the Blessing of the Deep. And Enzo just going to back off for now, giving over a little bit more space. The Legacy is a real danger that needs to be dealt with. Oniro has to back off, though. You cannot go up against all those squids. You just do not have the damage to burn through it all. Enzo uses the Indestructible Guard in order to get access to that back line, start punching away. But guess what? The mission area is still moving. Legacy desperately needs some help here. I believe gets a bubble coming through from the side of the Hulk, and plenty of healing going to be offered as well.
Polly's taking a lot of damage, but there's so many like shields to just keep people up and going for the most part when you've got the Hulk involved in play and the Invisible Woman. Invisible Boundary for Ken. Ready to go, but just holding on to see if he can bait anything else out. And there it is. Eternal Bond is going to be the first thing that's used in this engagement. And things are starting to follow. Getting out these defensive ultimates means that the Meteor M up in the sky, able to find Frost Mountain just as he was able to get the ultimate online too. And in a brawly fight like this, that could have been the difference.
However, Alex has been taken down, didn't get to use their ultimates. It's going to have to be a recontest here with the fate of both worlds. Will someone be able to make a move to contest this point, however? They don't have all the time in the world to actually get onto there. Maybe Pokey goes for a double dash. You can't... Okay, yeah, Alex is on point. And it's going to be Enzo sitting here with the World Breaker Hulk. Yeah, there's going to be plenty of damage taken, but that's all right. Early force on the fate of both worlds. And Frost Mountain's down again. Just constantly the main target of the ultimates from the side of Brbr Padawan. They do not want to have to deal with the Kraken impact today.
Legacy trying to run out as much as possible and get more shields, more healing, but that's not stopping Pokey from just piling on the pressure, at least farming up towards another Dance of the Butterfly. It was looking like 0% were able to sort of take that first point, but here they're sort of stuck. Pokey up on the high ground, not really being acknowledged up until this point. Psionic Seduction from Legacy going to be used, but Tanuki, it's a great Horn of Proteus to just take everything down. No damage boost needed from Alex. It was just enough with the right damage in the right spot.
No damage boost needed yet. I think Ken might have used for force physics to push Frost Mountain into the center of that Horn of Proteus. That's rancid gaming.
Big stuff. I just love it. You've got Enzo now just hugging up on the high ground to dive in. Just how irritating Brbr Padawan have been with all of these like characters being able to dive in. It's not quite as meta as it used to be, but it's still strong and prevalent. Eternal Bond trying to be aggressive, forcing out invisible boundary from Ken. Meteor M, it's such a good ultimate to pull out when you've got people not playing in the invisible boundary. But yet again, we're seeing a Venn diagram right on the objective this time with less than a minute left. Line Pro, it's the only ultimate that 0% had at this point, but Frost Mountain's the one that's actually able to find the eliminations and finally for 0% get past this first checkpoint.
Oh, Frost Mountain just being able to stay alive through a fight long enough to get some value out of a Rotterdam, you know? It feels like Frost Mountain is often that first target for Brbr Padawan, and they're generally getting their man when they try and make that play. But for 0%, this was by no means a cheap fight. They've expended their entire ultimate bank just to extend their time bank here, but it had to be worth it. Brbr Padawan, now they get to defend an even more defensible area.
You see Legacy trying to play past this choke point where I think 0% did a really good job of holding it on their defense. They don't want to get stuck in the same spot, but they might not really get the option with a fight as clean as this from Tanuki to Dance the Butterflies as well from Pokey. This DPS line, we've not seen much from Pokey so far in like previous history of Marvel Rivals. Now you're starting to see why this Brbr Padawan wanted to pick him and Polly up.
Yeah, Pokey was on a all-Norwegian roster, I believe, called Royal Beamers. They did, I think, top 4, maybe top 6 MRC, and Pokey definitely was scouted off the back of that one. Oh, what a great exile coming on through. This might force the blessing of the deep, but guess what? It's so difficult to try and deal with those squids. Someone else has got to try and do the admin, and while it's going to be continuously taxed on this high ground from Isidore, they are going to lose their hold form for it. Down into the banner, out comes the Dance of the Butterflies, but it's easily answered by the fate of both worlds. Quick damage,
Line Pro
just on the periphery, gets one tap by the damage boosted Horn of Proteus. Never stood a chance. A mid-air potentially coming in through here. Meteor M on to the Magneto. Doesn't quite hit pay dirt. It's going to be afflicted with the culling debuff. If they can get him low enough, it's going to be a reset. But Polly simply
got out
himself with the metallic bulwark. And that means no resets.
He just Homer Simpsoned into the hedge of that fight. He just held back and nobody really bothered with him at this point. Now Enzo, World Breaker, not really enough. It's just going to be brought down to Bruce Banner. And with all of that, 0% still able to win the fight. I think it was a good engagement from Legacy and Line Pro. Going out early in the fight, once he came back, had the invisible boundary. Here, it's just keeping things going. It's just on the precipice constantly for 0%. Just a couple more percent, and they might be able to take this map back.
A Dance of the Butterflies ready to go. Actually uses multiple of their cooldowns to try and disengage here. Big grab coming through onto Polly. The invisible boundaries. You just try and save the Magneto. You need your Vanguard during all of these fights, and so they are going to be that priority heal. Coming through from the back, Pokey ready to go. It's been a wild play from a portal in the midst of all of this, and they're going to try and use it to escape, and now popping back out of it once again. And Iroh thinks it's winnable, but there's only Vanguards here, and now they're stuck in the enemy spawn. Oh, the pranks of the portal. It's a Sorcerer Sundry that appears to have flummoxed them.
It was just so chaotic, but that just seems to really lean towards Brbr Patapim. You've got to dance with the butterflies, you've got a player jumping through the portal to safety, but then the damage isn't shared out, and that's when you lose some of your supports from 0%. Just the like every man for themselves attitude is costing them here, and now it's just one final fight trying to go through onto the portal to touch the objective, but it's uncomfortable. Eternal Bond has to be used to just get them in, really, to try to take on a fight themselves. The payload is right on the edge, though. It looks like Brbr Patapim might have jumped off of it for just long enough for 0% to take it, but no, Tanuki's still going.
Floats above it all, unbothered. Enzo uses the Dark Maelstrom to rack the souls of 0% with dark energies. And despite a spirited defense from 0%, they just do not have what it takes to break the underground station. It's a solid hold from Brbr Patapim, and they come out as strong as we were expecting in our marquee matchup of the day.
Yeah, I think we were like hoping for a full best of 3 series in this one, but it is like a hard matchup. LionPro said to me like it couldn't have been harder realistically when it comes to some of the teams that they play up against. Naturally, there's one that springs to mind, but Brbr Patapim, they're very well practiced. We've seen a lot of them play. They're not afraid to sort of reveal some of the ideas that they've been trying in other third-party tournaments. But 0%, it's a young team. It's sort of a ragtag group put together. Having somebody like LionPro really seal it to give that experience. Just some of the fights going slightly wrong. An ultimate being 5 seconds too early, being 5 seconds too late. The wrong target prioritization, the wrong fights to engage on or disengage on. It's just that lack of being able to deal with the chaos that Brbr Patapim was able to excel on.
Yeah, Brbr Patapim also managing to find like so many frags, so many final hits onto the duelists of 0%. We saw very high deaths, both from Frost Mountain and from Oniro. And I've got to assume that that's down to Brbr Patapim and just being able to consistently find like 2v1s. They're hitting their controlling elements like the Absolute Zero from Lunar Frost, or they're getting their Enzo Gamma Spit to lock down someone out of... to exile someone from the fight for a little bit until they're ready to try and make an execution play.
Yeah.
And that really has created so many openings in these fights where there's a lot more space to work with. Those duelists aren't peppering you.
Yeah, there's an old adage that I like from like other games when it comes to like tanks, supports, DPS. If the tank dies, it's the support's fault. If the support dies, it's the tank's fault. If the DPS die, it's their fault. So maybe that's like the best way to sort of look at it there.
I could certainly see a little bit of a blame game going on. I think that 0% at least are a team that are generally going to be fairly immune to tilt. They got Big Brother in LionPro ready to go in the midst of all this, so I feel like they're going to be one of the teams that reacts better to any losses in this tournament and be able to bounce back and not really tilt too much off the back of kind of being transferred by Patapim, especially when this was fairly expected.
Yeah, I think so. Like, this is about as close as you could possibly get, I think. And so it's just finding those, like, narrow margins because, you know, against other teams that aren't Brbr Patapim Virtus Pro, can I see this 0% team winning? Absolutely. Like, they looked really good in a lot of places. It's just they don't have the same level as reps, frankly, as the two top teams that have been playing since well before Season 0, Season -1 with, like, the closed beta tournaments and stuff. Like, it's just reps I think that these like young players need, and LionPro can sort of coax them through it, but at the end of the day they need to just get the games under their belt.
Yeah, sometimes experience is king, and like you said, 0%, they have had a considerable rebuild since the Fnatic days that LionPro had before, and scouting all this new talent. It takes a while to take like raw talent and mold it into a professional player. There's more to winning in the tournament server than just coming in and aiming good or making a good decision, having a good ult here and there. You need to be able to read your opponents super well. You need to be very much in tune with what the rest of your team are doing, and once 0% really dot their I's and cross their T's there, we could see them be able to bring it to a team like Brbr Patapim, who are like Brbr Patapim are kind of just like a frag power juggernaut. Like, they've got very good fight planning, but I feel like the real strength of Brbr Patapim is that every gamer on this roster is happy to go for a 1v1 no matter what. Like, they're like yard win. Every single one of them.
Like, there's so many like instances in like all sorts of games where like there's good fights that you can take, there's bad fights that you can take, but you can still like play well in a bad fight and win, or you can like lose in a good fight and you're still like, that was still a good effort from us. We just got unlucky, or we didn't expect this and that. It feels like Brbr Papim could just make anything a good fight, and that's hard to play up against. If you're 0%, you're trying to play a little bit more disciplined and have that structure, and you still lose those fights. That's where a lot of players could be like, well, what do we do instead, right? What are our options? And that's what some of those fights felt like a little bit, 0%.
All right, let's have a chat to the controller god himself, Enzo, on the line for our post-match interview with our winner. It feels like it's been forever since we got to talk to you, Enzo. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's been a while now. 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months, a whole new team, new teammates. I guess I just want the lore from you. How did Brbr Papim happen?
Basically, after MRC, we choose to change a bit of our roster by just keeping the core, which is us four, Tanuki, me, Alex, and Ken. And we found the perfect duo that was matching with us. Pokey and Polly were two really good ranked players that was playing in some teams, and they were like really good. So we say, okay, we're gonna try with them. And we find out that they are like so fucking good at the game mechanically.
Naughty Enzo.
The
Scouting there.
I mean, when it comes to like, because the game is so early as well, that like learning heroes seems like easier to do now than it would do in like 3 or 4 years time when there's a few more, right? Like, what was it about Pokey and Polly that enticed you into them? Was it like their attitude? Was it their playstyle? Like, from not knowing them that much and certainly not playing with them, what is it that does to bring to the table that made them so interesting for you to pick up?
We wanted to play with people that grind a lot, that plays the game 24/7, and that are ready to learn any character at any time and put all their life in this game, because that's what we're doing. Like we want to make this game a living, so we're putting all the energy we have, and we find out that Pokey and Polly were the perfect people for that. They are really good mechanically, and they're spending all their time on the game by being top rank. So that's most of the reason we picked them instead of anyone.
Since we last spoke, the tournament infrastructure itself has changed considerably. We're running an advanced ban format right now. How do you guys feel like you're coping with a changeover to these advanced bans?
I think the new system is really good for us because we can play every character in the game basically. We can play most of the new, like everything. We can pull up BP, we can pull up Hulk, we can pull up Cap, we can pull up Venom, we can pull up everything that is in the game, we can play them. So the fact that there's this ban, well, it's open to like multiple drafts compared to before. Before there was only 2 bans, 1 save. You are kind of forced to play Groot and Bucky, and that's it. So I think this is really good for us, and I really enjoyed this system.
I think that was something that we said as well, like for Krakoa, that you'd lost the second point, and then the third point you changed up like 4 of your characters to sort of try and counter what Aceto was doing on the Captain America and stuff. Like, how do you get good at that kind of stuff? Like, it was almost like, okay, we know what we need to switch to. And even like we saw at the start of Midtown, you see the Penny Parker setup, and it's like, okay, you're gonna go on Punisher, the Squirrel Girl Ken. It's such a weird thing to do, but it almost felt that you were instantly all on the same page of like, okay, yeah, we're just gonna do this. Like, how did you get to that point where you're pulling out crazy stuff like that?
On Midtown, it's something that we know people do. People always like do this thing in defense because it's really hard to hold the first half of the point. So people usually do this comp, and we know that going into the spam is like the key. It's basically the key. We know we're gonna spam and they're gonna die, because the whole point of doing that is stalling time from us. So we just know. And we tried a couple of stuff, and I say, okay, let me try the Punisher. We see if it's good or not. And it worked really well. I was feeling like a Fortnite player for once. Shotgun, 200 pump everyone.
Well, you looked bloody good on it, Enzo. It's nice to see even more of your controller prowess on different characters. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on the win. We're looking forward to seeing you run deeper into this bracket.
Yeah, we're ready to fight Schmungus tomorrow and show a lot more than we showed today. I think we're like a really fun team to watch, and I'm really excited to show everyone what we learned.
Right, that's what we're expecting. Cinema.
The Black Panther duel is going to be legendary. That was Brbr going up against 0%, a 2-0 victory. And, well, it was very impressive. Brbr with some mid-stage adaptations as well, going over on Krakoa. We saw a little bit of a struggle in map number 2. And straight away, we had our... We're just going to leave Enzo up on screen, you know. Bro's having a good time.
Beautiful guy.
Giving me time to read the French food safety instructions, which are incredibly important.
Why does his bedroom look like a doctor's office, is what I was going to say. Like, that's the only thing that I could think of, because his bed was like one of the things that you sit on when they like take your blood and stuff. Like, it's very clinical, like his gameplay.
You're a wild guy for saying that, Ryan, but it had to be said. We've got brackets to check out as well as we figure out how it's going in Group B at the moment. As Enzo alluded to, Schmungus are going to be their next match coming up later on in the week. But first off, we've got to figure out what else is happening in our bracket. Zero Nasty going up against Blood Karyuda. That's going to be an incredibly close one. But if you want to get closer to the action in style, you should check out the new costumes coming out in the coming week. The Future Foundation is ready to welcome you going forward. Sue Storm and Ben Grimm join the battlefield in style with their iconic Future Foundation costumes straight from a Fantastic Four 2011 run. These are available from June 13th, so save up your units and get ready to be fantastic in style.
Yeah, good stuff. You get good at those. I don't really have much else to add other than like the pretty skins. I mean, just get us onto First Pro. I think that's the one to finish today. I think like we've mostly seen these kind of close series look good in some fights, but be 2-0s. It would be spectacular to see Fire Strays maybe do that against First Pro, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it might be ready to happen. Like, Fire Strays have their work cut out for them. It's an unlucky draw to go up against Virtus Pro first, but hey, it's Marvel Rivals Ignite, baby. Anything can happen, and you do not want to miss it, so don't go anywhere during this break.
기다려 I'll be there 쓰러지지 마 끝까지 일어나야 해 어딜 가든지 극복해 힘은 너에게 있는 걸 소리 높여 노래를 불러 작은 걱정 따윈 던지고 최선을 다해 작품을 쳐봐 한도 믿어 내일까지 아름다운 꿈을 밝혀봐 우리에게 달려서 그 세계 운명 눈이 부신 모든 순간들 지켜내야 해 내게 좋아지려면 꿈꿨던 너와 나 그대들의 승리 완명해 The fate of the both the world is in our hands 작은 걱정 따윈 던지고 최선을 다해 작품을 쳐봐 한도 믿어 내일까지 아름다운 꿈을 밝혀봐 우리에게 달려서 그 세계 운명 한도 믿어 내일까지 세계 운명 Remember the dusk, the lights gripping tightly, trapping all those fighting souls. But yet, across the world, I see you standing in my way. And remember the time, the place we used to fight, like the sun and moon. And I wonder if ever there was a time that we were friends. The night has fallen, shadows looming, and yes, that time has come for me to seek you out. We are set now for our last reunion. Break the chains, find your way, come find me. Do you remember who you really are? Show me that you are still the only
Heavy is the head that wears the crown, but thus far, Virtus Pro have been unbothered by the weight. An entire, what do you say, half year of not losing a single game in Marvel Rivals professionally. EMEA has been quaking under the stomp of their boots and they have been farming cash for as long as it's been offered.
I mean, it's the team that you sort of look at them, and there's nobody on that squad that you're like, who are they? Without watching them and go, okay, yeah, that's why they're on the team, right? It's a team that has so much experience in other hero shooters that have come in and made a name for themselves pretty much off the rip, and they haven't dropped a series. They have dropped a lot more maps since the Invitational, where they had gone pretty much almost a year without one defeat in any specific singular map. When it comes to the actual series themselves, nobody's been able to beat them. Teams are getting closer, but not quite yet.
Yeah, this doesn't include MRC Season 0, since Marvel Rivals Invitational, I believe, took place just before MRC Season 1. And since then, it has been, they've just been invincible, untouchable. I don't think I'm going to make any enemies by saying they're the best team in the world, bar none. They are the team to beat right now. When we get international competition, Virtus Pro, they are going to be everybody's target.
Yeah, and we are seeing a lot more damage done to them. I do think that there is a little bit of a caveat to say here, though, too. Like, Brbr that we just saw, right? They're the ones that have brought Virtus Pro the closest. But every time that Brbr got to pick a map against Virtus Pro, it was domination. They were going for the King of the Hill game modes consistently because it was the one where they could do the most damage, and it's the more like chaotic, more likely to cause upsets. You can't do that in this tournament. You can't just go and keep picking domination. You have to, like, because the first map is always domination and you lose, you have to pick convoy or you have to pick convergence. So Virtus Pro kind of get buffed with this change, right? You can't just go up against the King of the Hill maps to try and do damage. You have to get good at the other game modes that Virtus Pro have really never lost on. I think they've lost one Midtown and I think they've lost one Spider Islands in their history. it is ridiculous.
Yeah, having to go through all of the maps before you can go back to domination and maybe have a chance against Virtus Pro is a toughie. When you look at this roster, it's so hard to pick a highlight. In my opinion, I think Saipe might be one of the most complete players in the world when it comes to having an incredibly wide hero pool and being fantastic on each and every one of them, but Spark is just often a standout for this roster. He's the guy. On the other side, Fire Strays. This is a team that I think has a lot of potential, but they are going to be going straight into the meat grinder of VP. Particularly for me, I'm looking out for Binary here, who's got a fantastic Hulk in their back pocket, and Vale, who's a little bit of a flyer merchant, loves their Johnny Storm, loves their regular Storm, and might well pivot into some Ultron as well.
Yeah, some recognizable names if you watch the Invitational as well that used to be on the Twisted Mind team. They didn't really get too far in the squad. I think they won like one series, sort of finished top 6. But you're right, like everybody else, like Binary, I've heard really good things about. And this is a team that I think beat Ex-Oblivion as well to qualify for this event along the way. So, or they beat them in like previous tournaments. So they've done some damage beating squads that we were really surprised to just not see here flat out. So like Fire Stage, you can't really ignore them, I suppose. Like, yeah, it's like one of the bottom seeded teams because they came through that second qualifier, not the first, but it just might be that they've got everything lined up now to be a proper team. It's just a hell of an opponent to go up against first.
Yeah, like you said, proper team here is going to be the goal for Fire Strays. This is a very new roster. As far as I'm aware, they haven't been playing together for an entirely, maybe they've played together a while on like non-Fire Strays rosters, but I haven't seen these guys around as Fire Strays in any of the MRCs. We're going into our advanced ban system, by the way. Bans made here are for the enemy team only. So you can ban something and then try and take it away. Both teams going to ban Magneto first, but guess what? Brbr have the first protect, so they're likely to probably protect EMEA here, I imagine, in order to make sure that they do not have it stolen out from under them.
Yeah, and then what's happened so far, at least today, is like Loki's been the ban here, and then you protect Emma Frost. So instead of seeing one or the other, both teams trying to go for the same. But even though the system's a little bit more complicated, once you sort of realize a lot of the typical tendencies, it becomes very straightforward. For the most general meta stuff, it's the first 3 picks and bans. For the more specific team stuff, knowing what the opponents like to play, it's probably the last 3 that you're looking at.
Yep, Luna going to be going away. You do not want to allow Loki and Luna on the same squad. And so, yep, that's going to be simultaneous bans of both Psylocke and of Loki. Protect now for Fire Strays. Of course, these protects are for the team that picks them only, just like the bans are only for the opposing team. What is going to be too impactful to Fire Strays' composition to offer up on the potential bans? Maybe you go for a Storm here for Vale, allow for more of these flyers to be used. Oh, Punisher. He has had quite the rise up in terms of pick rate during this tournament.
He's a good pick because he's just so well-rounded in whatever kind of comps that come up, whether it's like aerial, whether it's a bit more dive, whether it's just sort of mirroring to try and run Punisher yourself. I think it's interesting though that Virtus Pro, you always have to look at the pick commands that they've gone for. It's 3 supports in a row that they've gone for. And Invisible Woman being banned as well. Like, typically you haven't seen it too much. Ultron being banned on one side means that we're likely going to be seeing some potential like Ultron on the side of Fire Strays. The problem is that so many other supports are banned out. You might not even have 3 supports to run left, you know?
Yeah, you're really feeling a little bit thin on the ground with the options, so to speak. Getting rid of that Invisible Woman also means that forced repositioning is going to be a little bit difficult. It also, interesting note here, Whoops on the leftmost of your screen right now didn't play, I believe was for substitute for Fire Strays for most of their run. They mostly played with Luthern during their qualifier run, so we'll have to see how Whoops slips into that hit scan DPS role.
Yeah, Luthern was playing Bucky and Namor, I think, so it shouldn't be too unlikely, I suppose, that those heroes are picked up, but it is a baptism of fire. Sort of like the opposite, though, of the OG Seed game earlier, where it's like, yeah, you're up against a tough opponent, but it means that if this is your first game on broadcast, you're just like, it's Virtus Pro, everybody loses to them. So, like, let's just go out and just have fun. Like, we're expected to lose for the majority of people. let's just give it a good shot. Virtus.pro, it's whether they can keep this gravy train going, and it's a hell of a prize pool to win. 3 million if they get all the way to the grand finals later this year. This is the first step towards it.
A new Flyer hero released means a new hero into Vale's pool. And it's going to be difficult to match this one. Sparker coming out on the Punisher here. Well lauded as a hit scan duelist enjoyer, even though they have had a very wide hero pool, including many projectiles for now. Fi just standing above it all. It's an excellent aerial duelist to try and make sure that the Ultron doesn't get too much free reign. Getting in close with those fire clusters can be particularly brutal. For now, though, it feels like Fire Strays are just trying to generate themselves a dive that's worthwhile, and they'll give up some space on the point to do it. Fincy gets taken out already by Deppy. A great first play right there. The distraction from Binary and Whoops going into the back, but the Fincy just fell through the cracks.
Now they've just forced to back up. It should be a fairly easy take from Fire Strays. Nobody's really able to contest at this point, but the group wall just going to shove things back for a moment, provide respite for Virtus.pro as Nevix trying to go for a bit more of a brawly comp when you look at the tanks available, but the rage of Ultron available. Everybody's sort of grouped up in this position, so it is going to force Virtus.pro back potentially.
Extermination Protocol does plenty of damage, but unfortunately it means that Whoops wasn't getting healing in that moment. Binary gets off into the Ultron drone for a touch more sustainability, but look at how much cleave Saipe can do right now. Invisible Boundary, ready to go if only it's going to be necessary. You might want to have to pocket Sparker through this, but Dredro's already on the case. You get stood up in front of the miniguns, and you best believe you're going to fall. Sparker's damage is unbearable for Strays.
Yeah, very nicely cleaned up. Sparker doing pretty much all of the damage so far. Fi uncontested in the air. It's only one elimination. It's actually come through to Finzy, and 35% has been able to be grabbed from Fire Strays up and at this point.
Quick reposition here from Virtus.pro, trying to be proactive with how they're responding to these pushes. And well, speaking of proactivity, Binary's ready to use the Living Legend, heading straight in towards our back line. And yeah, the Invisible Boundary has to be dragged out here to try and deal with the Dance of the Butterflies. Saipe feeling comfortable with Dredro for now. Fi, after using that Supernova, is going to feel the need to back on off. And this could actually be a flip in favor of Fire Strays if Virtus.pro don't keep themselves on the point right now. Deppy's being scared off of this one, does not want to get walled off by Nevix on the group. Previously, Groot has kind of been the permaban for Virtus.pro heading into this, but the new ban system changing everything here. Too much damage onto Whoops. Multiple players mind controlled, and that means that it's easy pickups from above. Sparker just mag dumps into their skulls, and the knockouts are delivered.
Everything forced to reset yet again. Again, just that one elimination onto Finzy. That has been it. The only bit of damage that's been able to be achieved so far. And the setup's nice from Sparky. He did this last time too, just setting up on the turret, forcing out some of the burst damage, just buying more and more time with 75% on the clock by trying to catch the Captain America sort of on his lonesome. Might need to be forced to a reset, and that's just going to add up more time on Strays for them to suffer with.
Yeah, Binary's going to be able to pick up a health pack, but not much more than that. Exo noted on the other side for now, has to dive on down with the F in order to get out of harm's way. Exo caught on an angle. Sparker easy to track through that one. The final judgment's ready to go as well. Everyone grabbed on in, and guess what? That means headshot hitboxes are not going to be moving. You just mag dump them with 2 miniguns, and it's too much to bear. Sparker's damage, it's under the gaze of Bast, and T'Challa gazes down proudly upon his top fragger.
Yeah, it was just that sort of first fight, really, wasn't it? Just the way, I guess, that Fire Strays fought across the point, able to grab it first. But that was pretty much it. It was just sort of resets, bits of time. Everything up until then was very clean, very straightforward. Like Sparker being able to do so much damage uncontested, Fi being able to do that much damage uncontested.
30 seconds before you attack.
And
Get ready.
quadruple supports is in hold, I suppose, for the time being. I don't think Fire Strays are going to be going for this so far, but the triple supports hasn't really been working with the Ultron, I don't think, because you are just missing some of the parts to make it work as well as it can do.
I mean, it's just so difficult to get an audacious peak on the Ultron against a player like Sparky, you know, and when you try and make these weird flying flanks work, maybe Fi floats up on you with that speed boost and your disengagement is going to be a little bit wanting. Of course, we're going to be swapping back over onto a cap now for Binary, or rather, what did Binary swap over onto? Okay, they've made a change here. No more cap. Instead of going for the Ember Frost, a little bit more frontline damage over the course of time when that beam starts to get built up. Supernova trapping in those Vanguards is a huge amount of damage, and the Mantis is going to try and sustain through it as Fi is forced to dive elsewhere. Still, there's going to be strategist ultimates invested from both sides. Exo grabbed out of their ultimate, smashed into the wall by Fincy, and well, Mantis, there's a puddle where she used to be, unfortunately, and Sparker just rolling on forward, shotgun ready to go if only there's going to be a moment. Nevix temporarily has to break through the walls, and well, that's going to be first cap.
Been able to push up this much as well. Just the resets keep on coming. With how clean that final, the last point that we saw was, meant that a lot of the ultimates were saved up for Virtus Pro. A very quick supernova from 5 just made these chokes to contest the point initially unobtainable for Fire Strays. They have a lot of ultimates themselves, built up to 4, maybe perhaps 5 with Kyoshin being very close to having the Eternal Bond. But it's what's going to be the push through power. You put so much premise onto Whoops' final judgment to be the thing that gets stuff going. This just looks too comfortable for Virtus Pro.
Man, taxing the approach, and do you want to try and play this without your final judgment? I doubt it. It's like your main offensive tool right now. Got to be careful not to get taxed on your exit too much, but you better believe that Nevix is not going to lay on anything for free. The ramp has been built, and well, Deppy's been built into a ramp themselves. The Flora Colossus turned into timber, and Fire Strays, they may be a light when it comes to the ticks that are available, but they can't get in a position to use them.
Pretty much by the book so far for Virtus Pro. Ultimate's not really been needed. I mean, are we still just on one elimination to the entirety of the team at this point? I think it's looking likely, yeah.
Okay, time to disengage. We leave. Oh, we're going to go for an Eternal Bond. They think that it's winnable right here. Will they be able to break through the healing of the Eternal Bond? It's a full investment here from Fire Strays. They see the opening. They found Nevix. They may well be correct, but it is indeed winnable. Staying in place is the group. Rises up the Ironwood wall in front of the Psionic Seduction, but it's Fi in the end who's lit his own fire underneath the Fire Strays. Exo moves forward with a Soul Resurgence, extra movement speed, and over health for everybody, and healing to boot as well. Fire Strays click every Q they have their eyes on, and it gets them the point.
I mean, there's only one chance really for them to do it. I think it's only, again, just a few kills in order to sort of flip the point, but 99% for Virtus Pro means that they can consolidate what they have, build up some of these ultimates. Nevix with Strangling Prison might honestly be all they need if he plays this correctly. Trying to shove things back as much as possible, walls in the way to try to cut off this battlefield and pull things in, and he's found two. The wall's enough of a cut off, and Spark is setting up with the turret means that it's clean sailing. It's now over onto the side of Virtus Pro, overtime ticking away, and how do you even contest this if you Fire Strays?
I mean, they don't have any Vanguards. It's going to have to be a squishy target that moves on in. Yeah, there's a speculative sedation coming through from a Mantis, but no one else is brave enough to step up to the plate. Maybe hoping that there'd be a return via a Doctor Strange pentagram of Ferrara portaling onto a point. But in this case, it's not to be held against Fire Strays. This is kind of what we expected coming on in. Fire's going to walk away with MVP, and it seems like Johnny far from dead.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's something that, like, Virtus Pro have been showing up consistently as well. Like, this is a team that sort of caught our attention at the Invitational because not only were they the team to be beating, but also they were scrimming North American teams instead of Europe. And they've started doing that again. In fact, a couple of teams have been doing that as well, sort of following suit. It's only 3 eliminations that actually went in against Virtus Pro. And just like Sparker and Fi both not dying, sort of goes to show like how comfortable it was for them to just sit in their positions, do damage, and really not be at any risk.
We can only assume that because Nevix, Fincy, and Cerebro all fell once, that they're getting kicked. So, lad, if you're looking for a new team, hit me up. I'm sure we can work something out.
Not good enough.
Spark has been just lights out on the Punisher. I mean, it might even demand a ban, but the thing about playing against Virtus Pro is that, like, target banning them is it's a little bit of a trap. And it's also interesting to see that Virtus Pro Given their recent predilection towards always first banning Groot and just preferring to buy something like a thing-based composition, that we've always known that they have this Nevix Groot in the back pocket, but it's been sealed away in Carbonite for so long of their own choosing. But now they're kind of just letting the Groot hang out. Like, look, you can ban this if you want. We are very comfortable playing without it. But if you don't, we're probably going to Groot gap here.
I mean, they could also pick the thing. Like, I think, like previous events like Fight Nights and stuff, they have brought it out when it's been appropriate, right? So it's not like, whilst teams have moved away from it, Virtus Pro are never too afraid to go to these characters, and especially if you're that good on them, like we saw with the Human Torch for Fi, it still feels meta and it's still a problem to deal with. It's just not many teams are as strong on as many characters as Virtus Pro are.
Yeah, Fire Strays, they have a lot to think about, and well, they've got a lot of learning to do in this series. It may come to an end quickly, but we'll have to find out if that's going to be the true case after this break. You come for the king, you best not miss, and right now the kings are lording over all of the land. The fiefdom of Virtus Pro is well and truly established right now as we exit beginning T'Challa, with Virtus Pro winning 2-0. But now, Fire Strays, they get to choose where we're going, Ryan. They have their own fate in their hands.
And you can sort of cheese the system, it almost feels like, to just keep going to domination to try a look. Granted, from that performance, you might not even want to go there in the first place, but at the very least here, you can sort of try and like, okay, we really like playing this convoy map or this convergence map. Let's see how Virtus.pro like take it apart. What is their decisions? How can we prepare for it in the future? So for Fire Strays, it is going to be difficult, but like they did get to this point in the tournament. They deserve to be here. It's a pretty new team, and like any opportunity to play up against the top dogs globally, I think you're going to take it and take what lessons you can from it.
Yeah, they might be able to pull out a fast one here. Like, admittedly, they won't be able to choose to go to domination, which has historically been the weakest map mode of Virtus.pro. But with our advanced ban system as well, you do have a chance of getting one over on your opponent. I was just listening to Knuten speak about it from Zero Tenacity recently, and he seems of the opinion that you can just win some of these games. They've gone to Araco. Oh, this is actually so cool. Going to a new map that Virtus.pro probably haven't scrimmed that much is just such an equalizer.
Yeah, it's also like another convoy, really, like we saw Midtown in the last series. Here, it does feel a little bit like, okay, I don't think we saw Virtus.pro play this map at all. It was in Fight Night recently, but I think it was the week that they missed. So it's a little bit like Fire Strays are going, all right, Virtus.pro, show everybody what you've been preparing on this map. Let's all see what you're working on with the newest map added into the game. And so far, it's looking like the last draft pretty much identical as well, especially with both Emma Frosts being available for both teams.
All right, everyone wants to go in on the Emma Frost once again. Virtus.pro going to take away the Luna, not wanting to have to deal with the fate of both worlds, and the incredible output going to be a simultaneous ban for the next one here. Loki and Luna on the other side, so neither team is going to have Loki Luna. Question is now, do you try and save something like the Invisible Woman? Yep. Might well be the case. Yeah, you want to keep one of those primary defensive ultimates available from your strategist. Virtus.pro get the next ban, and then finally protect.
I'm trying to think of like whether Human Torch would be, for example, like somebody that's worth picking up. You've got that team up with Invisible Woman. Granted, that's never really the reason why he's in play. It's just that he's very consistently good. But just when you're playing flyers, like the high grounds, because you've got the payload moving, all of these like 90-degree angles high up that you can avoid. But then you've got all of the portals, you've got the high ground, low ground stuff. It's going to be really interesting to see what teams pick. And actually, the Human Torch being banned now, final sort of little trick, I suppose, for Fire Strays to make sure the Virtus.pro's Fi can't pick it up this time.
Yeah, just keeping Fi down on the ground. We haven't seen too much of I think we may have seen a touch of Fi playing Storm, but isn't really one of their go-to picks. Vale, on the other hand, loves to play both a Storm and the Human Torch. And maybe the Human Torch here being banned out, meaning that there's not really that much of a great aerial duelist to match the Johnny, considering that I think that Johnny's probably the best air-to-air duelist. Given that he can get in real close, has an escape to try and work with the F, and has like a shotgun style gun as well to try and work with, may give Vale a little bit of additional wiggle room.
Yeah, and you also get the team up with Invisible Woman that gives you some like extra like HP as well if you need it in a cinch. So you have a lot to work with, more so than most typical flyers. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Virtus.pro do on this map. It feels very like akin to the stuff that we've seen from convoys previously. It's also thematically really cool to see a giant Ent walk around and turn what looks like Milton Keynes car park into lovely like aura.
You Miltoning the Keynes.
yeah. Degentrifying it.
Taking it back to its roots.
Quite literally.
Letting the Druids reclaim it, another Flora Colossus. Don't know if we have many examples of those in the comics apart from Groot themselves. Fi speculating at the moment as to where to try and place this Feral Lip. Going up against a Gamma-assisted Namor does mean that those Gamma Squids are going to be a constant thorn in the side of these characters that do not have the easiest ability taking them down. It's going to be mostly done with the Punisher to try and do that. Hold up! What is this? Grab there from Fi. Just takes Vale for a ride for a little while longer. Throws a bit of a mechanical demon, even on the Wolverine.
He was thinking so much about whether he could, he didn't think enough about whether he should. I mean, these dashes have been good, and like being able to jump onto the Emma Frost, force out Diamond Form, and force them back means that even though these fights from Fi's perspective have been a little bit comedic, the payload is still moving. Virtus.pro are getting past this first annoying choke.
Gotta remember this death drop on the left-hand side as well. You could be instantly knocked out if you get sent down into the abyss below by something like an invisible woman. Out comes the eternal bond right here. It's go time for Virtus Pro, and it seems like we're going to try and shut down Dredro, but Dredro simply fades away. You can't pull out the same tricks we've seen previously. Depi falls to a Thorn Lash wall that, well, Nevix got up just behind him right at the moment that it was needed. An invisible boundary brought up here by Kiyoshi, and Nevix is taking so much damage here from the Gamma Squids. I think they have been dealt with here by Sparker, who has a final judgment ready to go if it's going to be needed. For Exo, it's a little bit of a solo engagement right now. The remainder of Fire Strays are going to eventually jump into this one and get it up real nice and close to Sparker. Dragged out of the Strategist ultimates by the Groot ultimate itself, and you know, locking them in place so it's easy headshots does mean that Final Judgment tends to just get through those ults.
This is not going to be contestable at all. Like, that's the most crazy thing about this from Virtus Pro. It wasn't like there was an engagement and then the point stayed still. Throughout all of that, Virtus Pro somehow were just moving the point forward because of how Fire Strays were taking the fights. They just, once they won that engagement, they got the final, like, checkpoint and able to move on to this next stage.
All right, stage 2. We have not seen much Arako in pro play yet, but Virtus Pro seem undeterred thus far.
Still moving.
Yeah, Sentient seized. Fincy moving up real close here, going up against that diamond form. Is immune to seize. Oh, that is such a massive kick. Oh, the carbon crush. And boy, is it crushing right now. They'll get to mid-air there onto Fincy, shutting down the reign of terror that Emma Frost had upon the backline. And Fire Strays, even down Kiyoshi, might finally be able to control this high ground and really start to break this time bank.
Yeah, but it's, again, like, the payload has maybe moved down to one person on it for the time being. Now it's actually, like, able to be held for Fire Strays to an extent, but it was expensive with the ultimates used. Barker, 75% towards having a final judgment. Now is the thing that really carved open the final point, and Psionic Seduction might mean that it's not required at all. Hulk is just peppered down. It goes into the Punisher ultimate to be able to maybe put this one to bed and take this fight, but Fire Strays are doing well to just keep themselves in it. Nobody's been eliminated whilst all this fight is going on, and in fact, Sparker's the one to go down first.
Yeah, the Gamma Squid, it's just the Gamma Monstro spawn. Over time, it scales up its damage, and because there was no real mobility available for Sparker, it just locked onto him. And then it continually started building up that damage until the pocket could no longer sustain them. Still Virtus Pro even down Sparker. Able to clutch out here. Binary is going to be returning on the Hulk, but Fire Strays, they're almost all out of resources.
Fighting this is going to be uncomfortable. You do have a Supernova. You know that there's not going to be a final judgment combination, so being able to throw 5 tornadoes on the point. Force back Virtus Pro, at least for the time being, is going to be key. With 2.5 minutes on the clock, stalling out here for a bit more time is almost necessary, it feels like, because Virtus Pro made a pretty easy job of this thus far. Invisible boundary available for Saipe. He's just going to throw it down in a more aggressive position, and the rest of the team is going to finish the job.
Look at how explosive that fight was as well. The force physics to pull in Kiyoshi's into the invisible boundary where it was so hard to target heals on them from the side of Exo as well. Classic VP.
By movement as well to just leap in, keep things moving, keep this upward pressure going. Both tanks comfortable to be pushed up this far to try and take these engagements, and oh, they almost actually kill Whoops. Needs to be careful there with the burst damage that he just took. You're not even in the engagement here, you're just trying to prepare yourself.
5 slicing away right now. Still has plenty of rage to work with, as well as that ultimate, the last stand. Good to go. You can maybe get a surprise onto someone, drag them off of the high ground using the last stand. Tries to go for a grab, doesn't work out. Doesn't want to invest the ultimate after getting pulled back in. What a good play by Kiyoshis here. You've got to try and make a move here to stop the Flora Colossus from rolling on forward, though. And it seems like Dredro thinks that this one is still winnable. Big strangling prison. Up goes. Oh, they're doubling up on their strategist ultimates to try and get enough healing. They had both the Eternal Bond and the Invisible Boundary, but still someone felt how much damage Sparker is doing. It's a strike back, though, off the back of the Strangling Prison. But from here, Virtus Pro just fight their way out of the gulag. They fight their way out of the prison. These bars can't hold them.
it's you find the first elimination, you go onto the point and you stack both your ultimates and it's still not enough. That's pretty much the Virtus Pro experience for the most part. Pushed all the way to the spawn doors. Qadsiah's having to just get invisible, get onto the point to try and contest it because there's no way in otherwise. Whoops, using the final judgment, finds the opening, and this sort of split attention has provided Fire Strays a way back into this one. Wasn't just the invisible woman just buying a bit of time, it pulled Virtus Pro back and split their focus completely.
I mean, that was high value, yeah? Mess with the game plan, make sure that with Nevix and Fincy in positions where they thought they were going to be supportive, they couldn't be more wrong about that. The mugging in the backline from Qadsiah's got it all done.
Spark is still chipping away enough damage. One of the defining factors in how these fights have gone well for Virtus Pro has been the final judgments. Not too far away yet again. Finally, Psionic Seduction would be really nice to sort of shut some of these big ultimates down ahead of time, but you can sort of see the position of Virtus Pro fighting from. It's going to be hard to line that up.
There's the Sonic Seduction. Just bringing up the Ironwood wall to try and have some cover physically from there. Oh, whoops. Great tracking early on. And the Eternal Bond is not in time to save the members of Virtus Pro. Have already fallen down. Saipe and Nevix, they're going to be wishing they were here for this one. Sentient seized away from Drijo on that cloak and dagger, and it's just another disengagement coming through. Virtus Pro have had to call this one despite having the staying power of the Eternal Bond.
Strangle Prison for Nevix. Final judgment. Final chance, it feels like, for Virtus Pro. If they want to finish out this map, they've been pretty much sort of cruising through so far. Scenic route, and the turret and Veil enough damage to actually shut this down yet again. So Virtus Pro having to reset, regroup themselves, take this fight. Have a lot to work with, but Fire Strays have built up ultimates of their own. It's just whether the final judgments, which is going to go first, and Deppy Strangling Prison to match Nevix's.
A pair of prisons to be laying down upon the ground. This time for Virtus Pro, it's a different pathing moving forward. A first strike goes the way of Fire Strays. They've already used the final judgment. Whoops has managed to find Sparker in the judgment versus judgment call. He had the greater thoughts, the higher wisdom score, and he hit his saving throw. There's only 1 second remaining, and it's the last chance saloon here from Fincy, going up with the Sonic Seduction. He's overwhelmed in a 6 versus 1. A last chance touch coming through from Nevix.
Not back.
Portal kicked back through it by the Carbon Crush. The EMEA too difficult to deal with, but Binary's bitten off more than they can chew. A slight feed through with Saipe falling down courtesy of Veil. It's an all-out brawl behind the portal, using it for cover. Oh, the final stand. Fire's managed to find an opening into the backline. They look mortal for a moment, but it was Shrek pulling the sword out from his armpit like, nah, you ain't got me, cuz.
Oh, it was so close for Fire Strays. Now they've just sort of reset in to try and get that final fight right at the end. The dive in from Deppy is the thing that's going to be able to open this, and the Supernova Invisible Boundary just sort of thrown down whenever it feels appropriate. They're just backing out of it for the most part, and overtime is pretty much at the end of its wick. If we do see Virtus Pro slip off for a second, it's going to be the end of this attacking half for them. But they've got enough bodies here, they've got enough support, enough healing, they've got through these defensive ultimates. Now it's a case of just getting your own and putting the final nail in.
Whoops has a final stand to try and match this one. Deppy's got so much extra health as well from a Feast of the Abyss. The tracking works out better for Sparker. Guardian Shield's exactly where it needs to be. And now Sparker's getting up close and personal. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Frank Castle's here to hunt you down and take you to the Shadow Realm. And while Veil may well have come in, there's plenty of healing now. It's going to be Eternal Bonds from both sides. Great sustainability. Remember that Fear Strays is so close to their spawn room as well. But while stunned in place by Nevix, it's plenty of headshots that can be delivered, and critical damage proves too much to live through.
Yeah, a brutal fight in the end. It sort of looked like towards the end the Fire Strays might be able to just at least stop Virtus Pro from finishing the map. It ended up being a really good play from Nevix to bring out the Doctor Strange to get the portal to come through. Nice idea from Binary to sort of knock them back with the kick, but they're still able to just get on the point by mere seconds to put it into overtime. For Fire Strays to match that, it's going to be hard. Even if we did see Virtus Pro being stuck in that first position that they almost like had the map finishing, Fire Strays still have a lot of the map to get through in order to match it, and I don't think it's going to be that easy to do that.
It's not going to be easy, but it is crucially doable. Burning the entire time bank, nothing to be sniffed at. Shutting down Phi. A lot better this time around as well. Not seeing many feral leaps really strike pay dirt at the moment.
Like me.
And you know what? I think that Deppy's also making a case for being a pretty solid Groot here as well, going up against Nevix. We're seeing that similar adaptation from Fire Strays here of trying to win these initiative roles and just going straight for the fight that they want to take rather than playing reactively to Brbr being able to craft the perfect fight.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Brbr sort of a bit matched mechanically, but they just have the sort of right idea on, like, especially as the fights get past 30 seconds where the strat kind of goes out the window and it's just all coming down to the coordination and practice, where you got a team that's been together almost 2 years versus one that's been maybe together 2 weeks. So naturally, Brbr are going to have those advantages there. You've got this position that's constantly been taken up by the Punishers. This time it's actually Whoops on the other side, who's had a pretty impressive debut, I have to say. It's a hard debut to play in, but he's held his own as much as he possibly can.
Yeah, Fight gets out, keeping the regenerative healing factor crucially. Sniper was looking for a cheeky push into the death pit there, but it is not going to be coming through in this case. A new one ready to go rather shortly. Veil's just got such a nice angle here as well and isn't so bothered about the potential pushes coming through from Sniper, who's already got themselves an invisible boundary. Oh, Whoops has got a great angle here as well. That means Spark is going to require a little bit of a pocket to try and make this one work, but already found Phi in the midst of all this. Vinci has to disengage. The Vanguard line of Fire Strays are just washing over Brbr right now as all of the attention's going Sparker's way. Yes, Saipe's there with the pocket, but it might well require the invisible boundary to try and deal with this one. Fincy knocks Deppy off the map. That's so much value coming through from the kick, and Brbr should be able to convert off the back of this one.
Veil's just was pretty much uncontested when it came to the damage, but now the focus in, he's just not able to do enough to really scare Brbr. They've been comfortable. It has forced out, I think, the Psionic Seduction for Binary, but it was a little bit too late. A couple of people had already gone down in that engagement, and there wasn't much follow-up on it at all.
I'm not sure if I would have invested that invisible boundary myself when Deppy was already off the map, but Fire Strays, maybe they saw something that I did not. Deppy almost got the Strangling Prison ready to go. Nevix beat him to a punch thus far. Question is, when it comes to pressing that Q, are they going to be equally quick? It looks like Nevix might actually be cooking on the off angle here. You've got to worry about that Guardian Shield, though. If it blocks the incoming damage, it could be... Oh, a full rotation here. Wait, Fi's going to end up behind them after going through that TP. Yeah, there he goes. Caught out by Kiyoshi's. Maybe a little bit less familiar with where all of these teleporters are going right now, only mostly coming through from the ranked experience. Fail gives over the speed boost here, making sure that everyone can disengage as best they can from the duel. Ultimate's profit here by Brbr. Sonic Seduction and Last Judgment both used up, but now there's not going to be too much to try and deal with Whoops and with this Omega Hurricane. They are just going to be able to heal through it, crucially. Veil not getting too much value off the back of that one, and there it is. Strangling Prison, the last moment. Sparker from downtown just pumps him full of lead.
I think with all of that, the one thing I wanted to shout out was Finzy's Psionic Seduction, because it didn't really lead to any eliminations, but it was just as Fire Strays took control of the point, Finzy did it, everybody got off of it. They were trying to sort of save their skin. Brbr stopped the objective from moving. It's the polar opposite of what we saw on their attacking side, that Brbr were able to take fights whilst the payload was still going. The Fire Strays, they're taking fights and even winning some engagements, getting kills, but the objective is not moving anywhere.
Oh, Fight can cook here for sure. But first, Whoops needs to be taken care of. Finzy gets isolated by multiple Groot walls and up against two miniguns with nothing else to talk about. And now we have to move on forward, grab all of this space. It's been a big Brbr disengage, though. They've got back onto the objective to make sure that it's not easily taken from Fierce Strays. And even if they have to lose this fight, they can tax that time so well. The Flora Colossus starting to move. Maybe a kick off of the map and attempt to try and turn it around. Binary can't quite get the same value that Finzy did. Fi's ready to go with the last stand at the last moment too, but Spark is going to be the first one to hit. Out comes Veil with the Omega Hurricane. Multiple players brought on in, and Deppy with the Spore Bomb. Absolutely so seeds of destruction across the map.
My God, it's just a Wolverine that's able to contest. It's pretty much forced to overtime, and Brbr have just been amazing at that, really. Like, that fight was going so well for Firestrays for so long. It's only the end that things actually start moving along, meaning that Brbr almost have like 2 fights that they could potentially take with these angles to sort of play around, but they only need 1. The Strangler Cousin for Nevix available again very quickly after using it last. There's enough to have people dive in on top of it, and people are starting to go down on the side of Firestrays.
Drags him in brutally quickly. R2 players kicked into the wall. Binary and Deppy, they can't stand up to a force of nature that is Fincy. And yeah, there may well be an eternal bond to try and work with, but they're going to be dragged from it so easily by the Sonic Seduction. Just bouncing in place. Fincy's bouncing on the pad, dragging everyone over. Drijo in return is going to use their own eternal bond for plenty of staying power. It's a last chance saloon comeback here from Whoops. Moving in with the portal. It's going to be rather close to their ultimate, but unfortunately the sustain just isn't there, and Deppy falls so quickly before the damage of Sparker's final judgment. Despite quite the spirited defense for Firestrays, they aren't able to get one over on the King.
Not at all. Dominant day so far for Brbr, but that's to be expected right at the start of this. And really, it's like every team, I think, regardless of whether it's EMEA or across the pond, is going to be looking at the way the Brbr approach some of those fights to take things sort of comfortably, right? It really did feel like Firestrays had to dominantly win an engagement to just get a couple of meters on the objective, whereas Brbr were taking those fights so well on the attack, it was almost always constantly rolling along. 40k damage from Sparker. I mean, Vale was matching him almost like 4k behind. It's just the sustain and healing that was available to both Saipe and Drijo made it a fairly standard day in the office for them.
Yeah, let's roll on back through the highlights here to remember how it all went down. Vale getting plenty of damage done on the Johnny. I feel like this was definitely some insight into like how Firestrays will do against less dominant teams, you know? Like, this is a team that is by no means one you can count out in the lower bracket. They just got an unlucky draw going up against Virtus.pro first. I don't think there's anyone in this tournament who would be confident going up against Virtus.pro first up in our group stage. So the dreams of playoffs are far from gone. Fincy's still nasty no matter what he's playing as well, by the way. But I'm liking the current evolution in tactics that's coming through from Virtus.pro, where they use the Strangling Prison and Final Judgment to just lock people in place so you can hit all headshots all the time and beat out the healing that the strategist ultimates so often use to respond.
I mean, Brbr were always really good at like forcing out support ultimates and then sort of dealing the heavy damage, so that's just almost like you have everything lined up, you take the fights, even just the target selection. But I think that this series even was just a case of tempo, of like, okay, you find the first elimination, you win that fight, what can you do with it with that time window that you've just allowed yourself? Brbr were able to just get tempo despite not winning the fight some of the time, and then Firestrays, just like whether it was over focusing on trying to get fights, whether they weren't focusing enough on the objective or taking fights past the objective to get things moving, it's definitely worth looking back on and being like, how could that have gone better for us? Because it didn't feel bad with some of the fights that we took.
And I'd love to see more Araco picks from Firestrays here as well. I think that against established teams that have been scrimming for a lot longer and know each other's tendencies a lot better, maybe pulling out the map that they haven't scrimmed as much, where they don't know their rotations as in and out, where things aren't as crucially second nature, could be a little bit of a tech pick. So I'd like to see Firestrays continue down this path. I believe in the value of the Araco pick.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly to get information on what people are doing as well on the new map. It did feel a little bit like for Central Park, we didn't see it all that much. Granted, it was like the timing of the tournaments and stuff. But even like Midtown was sort of left for a little bit up until teams sort of worked it out, with like Storm being really good at the time, and then it was used a lot more. Araco, I think it is just teams being like, okay, what works here? And Punisher with the high low, the long sight lines with the turret that you could just mow people down from, seems to be the most obvious choice for teams to work with.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes guy with gun just go goo and go brrr, and you know, sometimes that's enough when you got these long sight lines. And certainly seems like Sparker and Whoops were getting it done of what they had proffered right there. The resurgence of Groot is certainly interesting as well. We've seen, I think this is we haven't seen a huge amount of Groot today. We've seen a lot of Emma, we've seen a lot of Cap, we've seen a lot of Mag, we've seen a good amount of Hulk as well. But a lot of our teams reticent to bring out the Groot, even when it's not banned. But what can I say? Like, it's kind of a classic certified classic in EMEA from the side of Virtus Pro. We got ourselves a bracket update now to see where we're going to be heading off to next. Virtus Pro. Now I'm going to be going up against... okay, we've got ourselves the Group A first. This is Schungus versus Brbr Padapim. And that's going to be an interesting matchup. Tomorrow we've got to figure out how Zero Tenacity and Blood Cayudo match up, as well as All Business and Low 9.
Yeah, and the elimination bracket, OG Seed versus 0%. Considering how those first games went, it's just hard for OG Seed, right? Like, you have to quickly fix things for, I believe it'll be Sunday that they play next. 0% weren't really that far behind Brbr Papim, so they should be feeling fairly comfortable going into that series. By OG Seed that we see going out in that 0-2 fashion. The other teams for Z10 versus Cariudo and All Business L9, like you said, we'll see them tomorrow. Same with Dusty, Insight, Peps, Young Kanda as well. But we do see the upper bracket game of Virtus Pro versus Rad, which should be a good one, seeing exactly where Rad are, whether it can do a little bit more damage and be as scary as Brbr Papim have been in the past. And then Firestrays versus Qadsiah, which... That's a really like sad, I suppose, like first elimination game, because those two teams could go relatively far if they get a good bracket in their favor.
Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of RNG to it, but in the end, you're not going to win unless you can beat everybody, right? Dusty and Insomnia going to be the next up, as well as Peps and Yoinkanda. Going to be a battle of the French squads between Peps and Yoinkanda, which is certainly going to be interesting to see. Etsu leading the other half of Old OG to victory, potentially, as there was that little schism where we saw that Enzo managed to pick up Polly and Pokey, and it feels like Brbr Padapim may have got the better half of the house in the divorce, you know? They may have walked away with the car and the kids and the dog in the house.
Antanuki, just
Antanuki, the prized kid. We'll see if that's going to be a storyline that pays off later on.
Oh, for sure. Like, we definitely saw like exactly what makes this region so like exciting, and we've seen like teams like Brbr Papim versus Pro play like consistently in other tournaments. Like 0%, we've not seen that much. All Business we haven't seen in months at this rate. So seeing all 16 teams play not only across today but tomorrow gives us a good glimpse of what the region can offer at this point.
Graphic design is our passion here at Marvel Rivals Ignite. 24-0 for our invincible bear pack of Virtus Pro, yet to be challenged, but never without a challenger on the horizon. Next up is going to be, it could be Rad. I mean, Rad are a team that played them close before. But they can't do a bunch of cope domination picks like a lot of teams have done to try and get one over on Virtus Pro. Here's how our matches played out today. This was to be expected, of course. We're very early in the group stage, which means often it's Seed 1 versus Seed 8 and so on and so forth. We're going to get our closer games tomorrow, I imagine, as the more unknown factors start to clash.
Literally unknown, with some teams just being in the under the ice, I think, since the Invitational or even a championship. So, you know, Dusty we haven't seen since then. Insomnia GG I constantly hear good things about. Even like Low 9 is very similar in that practice. So those first two games are very like the old versus the new, I think. But then as the day gets on a little bit more, like Peps versus Yoinkanda, two very sort of well-known tenured teams. Same with Zero Tenacity and Blood Cariudo. Both squads looking like dark horses to make playoffs out of their respective group.
Yeah, but the dark horses are ready to really show their stuff here. I'm very excited to see how these lesser-known teams, or at least in the lesser-seen teams, in some cases, as you said, All Business, there's like no tape on them since MRC. So we don't really know what they look like right now. But when it comes to knowing what people look like, I know that you guys in the audience love to look fabulous. And you can look fabulous with the new bundle coming through from Marvel Rivals Ignite with our new costumes. You better believe it's time for claws out and fins up, baby. Prey on the weaknesses of your enemies as Wolverine's Weapon X and Jeff the Landshark's Sunshine Landshark costumes. There's no need to tame your instincts. It's time to get animalistic. It's time to go, ow, and hunt them down. They're already available in-game, you know, so go and pick them up, use your units, and look absolutely summer fresh.
I mean, I always like the skin on the left. It reminds me of the old like Wolverine's Revenge games. I especially like the level with like Jeff's costume as well. Just the juxtaposition of the two as well is great. Like they know what they're doing to put one of the worst days of his life for Wolverine and then just Jeff chilling in the summer sun right next to him.
he's having a fantastic time, you know. Like, Jeff hasn't been on holiday before, maybe. Actually, maybe all time on land is a holiday for Jeff the Land Shark. I don't know. Well, Jeff's getting a break, and so too are you. But make sure that you stick around here on the Marvel Rivals Twitch channel, because you better believe that America's is going to be coming your way soon. They've got plenty of close games, and we have basically coverage all throughout the next 4 days of all the best things happening in Marvel Rivals Ignite. So do not go anywhere, and we will see you for more EMEA tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
이루어지는 마법인 거야. 운명의 소리 들려 여기서 저기서 날 찾으면 달빛이 날 비춰와. 시작해야 let's go. 어둡고 흘러는 우주 따뜻한 눈으로 감싸는 순간 신비롭게 녹아내릴 거야. 좀 더 기다려 I'll be there. 쓰러지지만 끝까지 일어나야 해. 어딜 가든지 극복해. 힘은 너에게 있는